really cool personal achievement. I don't think that makes me a prodigy. It's just, and then I had another article get on NFL, but on the same day, the top writer at the company had an article get on Yahoo, and Yahoo was like 4th in 2012 in Alexa traffic. NFL was like 26th. So my achievement got downplayed because of that. But, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I had a little bit of success outside of Draft Utopia, and then I started this company, and I've been fortunate enough to sustain it for as long as I have. So, but yeah, enough about my personal journey. Welcome everyone to episode 1003 on TalkShoe and the 3rd episode of season 16, SEC preview, NFC East, and the worst division in the NFL. I previewed the NFC North with William 2 weeks ago. I took care of the South and the NFC West last week after the Hall of Fame game. And a lot of players that we had ranked in different spots on the draft 2026 NFL Draft Simulator are starting to make their presence known. Haynes King, we had a 89 out of 99 potential grade on him. That's the same grade I gave Jordan Love in 2020 for potential. Same grade I gave other really high-end talents. But, you know, I think we're seeing a lot of guys, whether it's Haynes King, Cade Klubnik, or even Drew Aller, start to emerge. I had an 88 on Aller, same grade I had on Bo Nix. You're starting to see a lot of guys emerge, not just guys that we looked at on the simulator, but guys who are playing above their projection. I had a 4th on Haynes King. He went undrafted. Jalen Daniels looked good last night. I had a 6th or 7th on him, but a lot of the guys that had high ceilings in the 26th draft, because they underachieved in their draft year or they got injured, their stock got downplayed. Their ability to succeed at the next level got downplayed. Their ability to reach their potential got downplayed.
Because I think you're seeing that exactly. You know, I mean, look, it's only week 1 of the preseason, and you shouldn't put a lot of stock into what's happened so far, but you are seeing that, though. You're seeing that trend. And, I mean, I'm not going to screen share anything right now, so I should probably make it so you can see all of our faces. If I was screen sharing something, I'd have every reason to use that camera angle, but, you know. I mean, I'm not going to screen share anything right now. Maybe later in the show when we preview when we do the Draft Utopia 6-pack and the NFC East and AFC South previews, we'll get into that. But we got 16 SEC teams. That is why Ron's here to join Joey and myself. And I'm just going to get straight down to it. I don't want to waste any more time. It's been a fun intro, though. It's been a fun intro talking about all these fun, engaging topics, but I want to get straight to the point here. So far in my college football playoff, okay, I tweaked it from last week. We have Notre Dame at 1, Miami at 7 after previewing the ACC, winning the conference. BYU is my Big 12 champion. I have them at 8. I have them losing to Notre Dame and winning out. Texas Tech, I have them losing 1 game to Oklahoma State. They missed the Big 12 championship because Kansas State doesn't have to play Texas Tech, Utah, BYU, or Utah. But they get in as the 10th seed. Louisville, my ACC runner-up, they only lost to Ole Miss in Miami. And then I've got Owen McCown and UTSA as my group of 5 team. But enough of that. I'm going to get straight to I'm trying to get the SEC standings. I found a site that posts a simulator like a college football simulator. Playoff predictors, they don't just have an NFL simulator. They have a college one too. All right, it loaded now. Perfect. So I'm going to go in reverse order. I think we're going to start with, dang it. I don't want all. I want Southeastern. I'm going to start with Arkansas, though. The reason I'm going to start with Arkansas is they play Howard and Tulsa at home. They have a really brutal SEC schedule. Phil Steele has them at 16th. He has them with 2 or 3 wins on the year. That's kind of where I have Arkansas. And Arkansas, not just that, Arkansas Razorbacks have a lot of turnover on offense. Yeah, they do have a guy in Quincy Rhodes, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 7 sacks that could develop into a sack artist very similarly to Landon Jackson a few years ago. They do have that guy. But outside of that, they do have a lot of turnover on offense. They do have some running backs coming back, but they got high ceilings, but they don't have a lot of reps.
and they lost 2 key impact players on offense Two key impact players on offense. What 2 key impact players am I referring to? One of those key, like Washington Jr., was a guy William liked. He went in the 3rd round of our group mock on Facebook. The Raiders took him in the 4th round of the NFL draft. They also lost Taylon Green, who's going to be making his preseason debut for the Cleveland Browns, most likely in the second half today. So losing your quarterback is always a big blow, and I just don't know if Arkansas has a guy
late fourth quarter
has the floor or the ceiling to replace what Taylon Green brought to Arkansas this season. So, Joey, go ahead.
Taylon Green late fourth quarter. Taylon Green will probably play late fourth quarter. It's going to be Deshaun Watson in the first half, Stur Sanders in the 3rd quarter, and near the end of the 3rd quarter, they're going to put in Gabriel and Green. So Green will probably get a good number of reps by mid-4th quarter to late, maybe a series or 2. So we'll see if his mechanics have cleared up over time.
Yeah. And I'll mention some of the other players in Arkansas briefly, but just looking at their schedule, I feel like Arkansas even though they have some good players, the amount of turnover they have and the schedule they have, it's pretty brutal. I'm going to try to refrain from going into too much detail on it, but Arkansas is that I want Arkansas roster.
Wow.
Yeah, but Arkansas, I don't know. There's some technical difficulties on my end. I'm trying to fix it as quickly as possible here. Just in terms of, like, looking at data, I did some research on a lot of these teams yesterday, but memorizing what I'm researching is not always easy, but I know they have 1 star player on defense, and they have a few raw impact players that could develop into high ceiling players. Okay, whatever. Worry about it. If that site's down, I just need to move on to the next team. As much as I'd like to rant about Arkansas, using my energy on the worst team in the SEC is not a smart use of time. So I'm going to move on to the next team.
Probably not.
Mississippi State. I do like a few players on Mississippi State, but when it comes to Mississippi State, okay. I just got up and I'm trying, bud. Give me a minute. That's an update from Yanish. So Yanish might be joining us shortly. So, all right. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad he's feeling better. I'm going to see if I can get the information for my research on my phone. That's why I'm on my phone, because the information about each team's not loading on my computer. Might be easier to just look at it on my phone briefly. But yeah, replacing Mike Washington, you have Braylon Russell and Sutton Smith, 2 running backs with starter potential, but limited volume, both very raw. And then you've got Jabari Hawkins at receiver and Malachi Breland at left guard. So that's Arkansas. I just feel like with their schedule is brutal too. There's a reason I have them going winless in the SEC. At Utah versus Georgia, at A&M versus Tennessee. They could win versus Tennessee or at Vanderbilt. Both those teams have freshman QBs, but they have 5-star QBs too. If those QBs dominate, Arkansas is going to lose both of those games. They play Missouri, who has the best running back and left tackle in the SEC, and Caden Green and Ahmad Hardy. At Auburn, they host South Carolina. They travel to Texas. They host LSU. That's Arkansas' schedule. That's why I have them at 2-10. I think it's pretty. I don't think they're the worst team in the SEC, but they drew a really tough schedule. Toughest schedule in the entire FBS out of 130 teams, according to Emmanuel Watson.
And they don't have the talent. They don't have the talent to try to match up with any of these teams right now. It's not part of theirs. It's not part of their rotation.
I think they could beat some teams like Mississippi State or Kentucky at home.
They didn't draw those teams on their schedule this year. That's when you have a 16-team conference, that's the break you get sometimes, Ron.
And they didn't get really too many any fluff teams either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like usually on the schedules, especially the Big Four conferences, most of the teams get those 1 or 2 games that are, out of conference, that are, out of nowhere state. You know what I mean? Right, that they get to play 1 or 2 of those games. You know what I mean? But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore.
Yep. And then you've got Mississippi State is next. I have them at 3-9. They have one star player that could be a star at the next level. Corner Kelly Jones. He is an elite press coverage corner. He is a great man cover corner. Not as dominant. Like, he's got a 97 for press and a 90 for man, an 87 for zone. So zone's his weakness. He's good in zone, but he's not great in zone. And I feel like that's the only building block Mississippi State has. He's a junior redshirt too, so if he doesn't want to turn pro this year, he could enter the portal next year and be a really solid addition for a number of SEC teams if he continues to improve. You got Fluff Bothwell at running back, Isaac Smith at strong safety, Anthony Evans III at receiver. There are some nice pieces on Mississippi State, but Mississippi State, they get Louisiana Monroe at home. I think they can win that game. They get Vanderbilt at home, which is another game I think they can win, and then they get Tennessee Tech at home. The rest of their schedule, like Arkansas, is pretty brutal. That's why I have them at 15, second to last in the conference.
And Chris, a couple of things you missed on Kelly Jones is that he is 6'4", almost 200 pounds right now. So his wingspan, his size, create mismatches throughout the matchup that he's going to have. And even for the inside receivers that may be running around near him, because that length can easily shut down passing lanes. Also, you have to look at, he is one of 7 of this team that were SEC academic All-Americans. So he's a smart guy. And he has a lot of experience playing 27 games, so he's picking up a lot of stuff very quickly. So those are things you also have to look at.
Agreed. And the top 3 corners right now for me, I have Leonard Moore and Bryce Pollock in the Draft Simulator. Zabian Brown's a suggestion I've gotten, and I've watched Zabian Brown for 2 years. He'll probably be my cornerback 3. After that, it's a mosh pit. There's like 5 corners I'm looking at for cornerback 4. In this draft. Brandon Finney of Oregon is one of them. Jabari Sharp of Indiana is another. Former Iowa State corner Jontez Williams transferred to USC. Michigan corner Jair Hill. And the 5th and final corner in that cornerback 4 discussion is Kelly Jones. And the more Joey talks about Jones' height and size, he's got a 94 in jumping as well, in addition to his coverage, so the athletic traits are there too. The more I hear about Jones, the more I think he has a realistic shot of being cornerback 4 if he does turn pro this year. Because Mississippi State, you can say what you want about their program. They have developed really good NFL corners over the years, even dating back to Darius Slay in 2013.
I mean, you know what I mean, right? So that's not a bad corner either. You know what I'm saying, right? I think Mississippi State's going to be able to put up Brennan Thompson too on the other side of the ball to be part of their offensive threat.
I think the Chargers took him in last year's draft. Otherwise, I agree with you on that.
Okay.
Not trying to downplay your opinion, Ron. It's just I think the Chargers took him in this year's NFL.
Oh, they did? Oh, okay.
He was a 4th-round pick, 105th overall.
All right.
Only reason I'm pointing this out is because we saw back-to-back Bulldogs at corner this decade with Emerson and Forbes in 22 and 23. DeCamerion Richardson was the Raiders' 4th-round pick in 2024. So Mississippi State, they had a 3-year run at cornerback in the 2020s, and before that you had Cameron Dantzler in 2020. So 4 corners in the NFL since 2020. I believe Jonathan Abram was a strong safety. He does not count as a corner. Will Redmond was a corner, 2016 3rd-round pick. So that's 5 corners since 2016. And then Darius Slay in 2013. I believe, I thought they had another corner before Darius Slay that got drafted. Oh, Jonathan Banks. He was teammates with Darius Slay. So that's 8 corners since Banks and Slay got drafted in the second round of 2013. Since Slay and Banks were 2013 second-round picks, Mississippi State has produced 6 NFL corners in that time span, dating back to Will Redmond in 2016.
Wow.
So Mississippi State does have a good track record with corners, even though they don't really have the greatest culture in terms of winning consistently. They do have a good track record with corners. So I think there is a chance, not to get off topic with Kelly Jones, I do think there's a chance he ends up being cornerback 4 at the end of the year with a big season, assuming he declares.
Okay.
But he might go back to college or enter the portal too if he has a bad year. We'll see. We'll see what he does as the season progresses.
I actually think Kelly Jones has a chance to have a rise similar to what we were thinking about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren last year, where we felt that he was a consensus first round, possibly, mid first round pick. Obviously, McNeil-Warren fell, but I think Kelly has a chance to get up into that discussion where he is one of the top 2 or 3 corners or defensive backs, depending on how versatile you think he is, that are coming out into this draft. If he goes out and just balls the way we think he can.
Yeah, because go ahead.
That's a tough part. That's a tough part, Joey, about when you start looking at players like right now, right? And it doesn't matter what sport you're looking at, right? When you're looking at players right now, it's like, okay, so we're looking at you in August. Okay, so let's look at you in, like, say, December. Let's look at you again, again in March. You know what I mean? Or something like that, right? So it's very, I like to try to give guys that window. You know what I mean? Like, I don't base everything just off the first look. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna watch the guy throughout the year, see how he plays, see what he does, see what kind of stats he puts up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the progression and regression situation. That's why a lot of us, when we're scouting and professional scouts and so on and so forth, will start years before they're eligible, because we get to see that progression in real time. And then when it comes to the season where, hey, they might be eligible, like for us, we're, here on Restream or YouTube or wherever we are, we're like, well, we can do 2 or 3 live shows on this guy because he's got so much upside. We can look at it and we map it and say, well, this is what I saw in, say, the first quarter of the season or the first third of the season, depending on how often you want to check in, and then do the same, and then after the season, and then you go straight into combine and pre-check. So now, even if you're not covering them immediately, you've got it in your head, hey, I'm looking for that guy, and see where he is.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, that I like looking at players throughout the season, because I want to see what they're doing when the ball's not coming their way, or when the puck's not coming their way. Or
how do they deal with adversity? That's the thing, because I found it's very hard to pinpoint risers at this point in the draft process. I don't care what sport you're scouting.
Exactly.
The reason I put Jason Adekora at 1 in my MLS rankings is because he's an incoming freshman at Maryland, captain Ghana's under-19 team. His high school was 6 out of 132 academically. He passes the ball. He intercepts passes like a cornerback in football, even though he's a soccer player. He shoots the ball. He scores effectively. He can dribble. He's played midfielder, center back. He's played 6 of the 10 positions on the pitch that are not goalie. That is incredibly rare for a soccer player to have, because most soccer players only play 2 to 5 positions. So to play 6 of the 10 positions on the pitch outside of goalie, that is incredibly rare for a freshman. So that's why I put him at 1.
And your next goal would be, because you don't want to base everything off one game. It's one of the reasons I hate the camp hubbub in any sport, because everybody's doing one day at a time. And that's just exhausting because it doesn't really tell you anything. But that's why your next step would be, in 3 or 4 games in, I'm not sure how many games are in, the season there, but maybe a third of the way through the season, go back and review all his games, even if it's just looking at highlights and lowlights, and say, what do I see here that may not have been there, or what isn't there that was there before, and then leave it at that, and then go in and say 2/3 of the way through the season and do it again. Just keep following up with it.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a great point. I mean, Maryland opens up soccer season on Thursday against Pittsburgh. You can catch at a top goal college soccer Panthers on X and in the Pittsburgh region by myself. But let's get back to the SEC. With next up, the Florida Gators. Florida Gators, we put the Gators on 30 minutes, but I do like what they have. They have 2 star players. I know they lost Lagway, but they got Eric Singleton, Auburn's number 2 receiver, in the portal. They also got Jaden Baugh, who Matt Hicks, a fantasy football guy who does the rookie scouting portfolios, he thinks Baugh could be as good as maybe the number 2 running back in this entire draft behind Kawan Lacey. I'm not that high on Jaden Baugh, but he is very good. They've also got Bryce Thornton at strong safety, Vernell Brown at receiver, and Miles Graham at weak side linebacker. But they lost their QB DJ Lagway to Baylor. Honestly, if Lagway had stayed, I think Florida would be a lot higher than where they're ranked. I have them at 14 right now in my SEC rankings on playoff predictors, but I think Florida would be somewhere in the top half, maybe between 7-5, 8-4, somewhere within that 7-11 range of my SEC rankings. But
were they not part of the mix last year as well too?
They fired Billy Napier. They have a new coach coming in. And Lagway, their QB, entering the portal. I just think that hurts their ability to attract star talent, because anytime you got a QB as good as Lagway leaving the program right when it hits its downturn, I don't blame Lagway, because he's trying to get his money and get a guaranteed starting gig, get noticed by scouts. The corners in the Big 12 are weaker than the SEC, so he'll have more success at Baylor. But it's like, I'm just looking at this and I'm saying, all right, Florida, I've got it 4-8. If Lagway had stayed, I think they'd win 6, maybe 7 games, and they'd be bowl eligible. That's the difference.
Well, here's the thing. Now you got in the portal, you got Mensa, and he is somebody who could be a low key,
Darian Mensa's on the Miami Hurricanes, Joey. He left Duke, but he signed with the Miami
Hurricanes. That's the wrong team. Wrong Florida team. I'm sorry. I just got off the bike and a little hot.
I'm looking up Florida's QB situation right now.
Yeah, but when it comes to Florida, I think they're going to have some pretty nice receivers. They're going to have some nice athletes.
They always do.
Yeah, I know that's the thing. The big question I would have, can they replenish the offensive line? Because they had some nice players last year, and one of the guys, I think 3 of the guys today are in the NFL looking to get some serious time, whether it be in the late first quarter or second quarter of these games. So, I mean, that's the big thing for me, because if a quarterback's on their back, they aren't going to be throwing too many passes.
Or much of anything else for that matter. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess, trainer's tape, might get angry. Right. They can throw trainer's tape away, but,
There you go. I'm a big proponent in
Interesting. Aaron Philo takes over as Florida's starting QB. He was the backup to Haynes King at Georgia Tech last year. He broke Trevor Lawrence's state record for passing yards in high school football in Georgia, and he redshirted in 2024, and then he backed up Haynes King last year, and now he's a first-year full-time starter in 2026.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to burst your bubble on that one, but we remember high school basketball when Sean Kemp broke Larry Bird's records and what happened in their first meeting in the NBA, right? That did not turn out well for Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
take those
Philo-
broken records.
Records are meant to be broken. Records are meant to be broken.
As long as
you
Philo
know?
avoids an AFC South team, he'll avoid that fateful encounter with Trevor Lawrence.
There you go.
Yeah. Trevor Lawrence throwing some of that hair that he lost, across the stadium at him.
Look, everybody talks about Trevor Lawrence, and the same thing with the dude from Cincinnati.
Joe
Burrow.
Burrow.
Burrow, yeah. If I had to build a team, I think I would probably use Joe Burrow more than I would use Trevor Lawrence. If I had to take either one of those two, like if I had my choice, you know what I mean? Like if you only could pick, if you could only pick those two quarterbacks, which one would you pick, right?
Yeah. And to support your statement there is like, I'm intimately knowledgeable about Joe Burrow's upbringing because he was raised in the same place I was raised, Athens, Ohio. So I know the mentality right there, and the mentality is far different from what you get with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's a Miami boy. He and I'm not talking Miami-Dade.
Or
I'm
California.
talking,
Or
California. Where Joe Burrow's like, oh, I broke my ankle. Well, I'm just going to take this boot
Tape
off
it
to
up
get the
and-
smoking down, and I'm going to shove it up your rear end. Because that's the mentality we had. Where Trevor Lawrence, he breaks his ankle, he's like, will somebody please just carry me off the field? And
with
that's
you
the
on that.
mentality, and I think that's the biggest difference because Lawrence definitely has more talent than probably all but 5 or 6 players in the NFL, but he doesn't have the mentality of somebody like Burrow, who's just like, you want to beat me, you're going to have to bring out some pretty stern stuff.
Yeah. And frankly, I don't think Joe Burrow's going to win anything where he's at anyway.
Oh, hell no.
I think he could in 3 years. If the Bengals are patient, they could make a run to 63. But I think they have to draw the right NFC team to win. They'd have to draw somebody who's never been to the big game. They'd have to draw like a Caleb
Cincinnati.
Williams.
Yeah, and if pigs could see the wind.
They'd
Their
have to
window
draw
is
the
closed.
Bears with Caleb Williams, and they'd have to draw the right team, and it would have to be Burrow, and I think it would be in Vegas. I think that is the earliest, because last year was the year Burrow was supposed to get his first, and he didn't. So I think the earliest, with all the defensive flaws the Bengals have, the earliest the Bengals can make another Super Bowl run is 63. And there's already questions about is their head coach going to stay? Is Burrow going to stay with the Bengals over the next 2 years? Those questions are already brewing because of Burrow's injury history.
Like I said, he's not going to ever win anything where he's at. It's just not going to happen, right?
I think he
it's
is.
like I said, if pigs can see the wind, old Irish proverb, and that tells you all you need to know about the Bengals. If pigs could see the wind, well, they'd be winning the Super Bowl. But you know what? I don't see pigs seeing the wind anytime soon.
I mean, they fixed the defensive tackle situation with Christian with Dexter Lawrence, but the rest of the defense still has holes in it, and they're going to have to fix that over the next 2 drafts if they want to have and keep Burrow and keep all these guys that they've re-signed on offense just to have a shot at getting another crack at a Super Bowl. And everything has to go right, and the odds of that happening aren't great. That's why Rod's suggesting it. Burrow probably won't win in Cincinnati. And to be fair, that's kind of how I feel about another AFC North QB. But I'm going to save that rant for next week. We're going to get to the next SEC team. It's Kentucky. Kentucky, I feel like they don't really have a player that's a star. They have a few decent offensive linemen. Colton Price, Lance Hurd. Ty Bryant and Gibb Gadsden are their 2 best defensive players. Their biggest addition in the transfer portal is C.J. Baxter. He was the former starting running back on the Texas Longhorns up until injuries occurred. and he lost the starting running back job last year. So Kentucky added Baxter in the portal. If Baxter can emerge, this running game could have an identity this year, which would help. But they get some. I think they'll win their 2 non-conference games at home. They get Vanderbilt at home. They get Florida at home. I think those are their 4 wins right there, and that's probably their season.
Yeah, that's probably it. Which, hey, it's funny though that the SEC is not quite the. Now, they're not like, horrible, but I think you're seeing the Big Ten kind of take over as the number 1 conference in college football. You know what I mean? And that was kind of what the goal was, because the SEC was ruling the block for many, many years with the likes of the Floridas and the Auburns and the, and Georgia for how many years did they have? And then how many years did the Crimson Tide, roll? You know what I'm saying? And SEC's just been in the ruling for years. And now you're seeing the Big Ten now, I think, has surpassed the SEC as the best college football conference right now. You know what I mean? And everything is cyclical, and everything is going to rotate. In 10 years' time, SEC is going to probably be back on top, or, the Big 12 might be, or, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Blue moon of Kentucky, keep on shining. Ain't gonna shine on the SEC this year.
Not so much. No, I don't think so. No.
I've got a better chance of shining in baseball, basketball, or college soccer, men's soccer. Take your pick between those sports.
I'm sure they also have a better chance of shining in rowing.
Right? Yeah, right.
They have a better chance of shining in cross country or women's volleyball too, but I don't want to tear Mark Stoops a new one. So I'm going to refrain.
The Kentucky jousting team, they got it.
Do they even have a jousting team? The Kentucky fencing team, Kentucky KFC, Kentucky Fencing Club.
That's just sick, Chris. That's wrong,
KFC
man.
acronym
That's wrong, dude. You're not allowed to do.
Yeah, Kentucky Fried Chicken might be good.
Yeah, I know the Kentucky Fencing Club was a terrible use of the KFC acronym. All right, let's move on to the next.
A slightly horrible use. I can see it now, man. KFC sending us.
I should probably drop it with the KFC acronyms before Colonel puts a bounty on me.
That's what I was just saying. I can see it now, man. You're going to get an email, man, from KFC going, "Hey, cease and desist."
Well, Chris, in your defense, the Colonel did have anger issues, so he might only throw a chair at you, not a fencing sword.
There you go. Or he might throw some chicken at you. You know what I mean?
Oh my
gosh.
All right, the next team up and the first team that I think could make a bowl game in the SEC is Vanderbilt. They may end up going they may end up regressing. But they got 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis taking over for Diego Pavia. The Vanderbilt freshman could surprise some people. Junior Sherrill's their top playmaker back at receiver. They have a nice kicker in Brock Taylor. Martell Height is their number 1 corner. Lyndon Cooper's at center. Ricardo Jones is the strong safety. And they have Cedric Alexander at running back. So they do have some building blocks. I'm not saying they are going to be anything spectacular. I think the floor is 2-10 if Curtis is absolutely abysmal, and if he plays decent and out of his mind in a few Vanderbilt home games, I think 6-6 is within reach.
Okay.
The reason I say that is the schedule.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
They get some good games. They get Austin P week 1, and then in week 2 they get They get some other opponents. I was going to go through the whole list here, but they get Delaware and Austin P in the first 2 weeks. They get NC State, but it's a home game for Vanderbilt. If Curtis steps up, Vanderbilt can win. If NC State
Yeah.
at Gunner Rivers, I probably would take NC State. They play Auburn and Georgia on the road. They're going to lose both of those games. I wanted to pick Vanderbilt over Ole Miss. I just couldn't do it. Ole Miss with Trinidad Chambliss, Kwan Lacey, they have too much talent. Their Vanderbilt star players are in the secondary. Even if they can limit Chambliss and cause a few turnovers, it won't be enough because Kwan Lacey is just going to run wild on Vanderbilt. They don't have anybody on that deep front seven that can stop Lacey. So that's a loss. And experience should win out. Vanderbilt does host Arkansas, though, so this team could be 4-3 after the first 7 games. I think they'll lose to Kentucky when they go to Lexington, though, so that will put them at 4-4. Them making a bowl game is going to come down to them either beating Florida in the Swamp, Mississippi State on the road in Starkville, or beating Alabama and Tennessee in Vanderbilt. Them getting into a bowl game is going to come down to winning 2 of those final 4 games. So,
yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense too. You know what I mean? So, but wow, Vanderbilt being considered for a bowl game. Whoa.
And they're barely in the bowl game discussion.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
have 85 teams going 6-6. I believe there's 42 or 43 bowl games out of all the bowl games, including the playoffs. So they just made the cut, barely.
Wow.
130 FBS teams. I have 85 winning 6 games this year. So
let me ask you a question, Chris. Is it me, or does it seem like there just is this crazy amount of bowl games? I mean, seriously, how is it that a team is 6-6 or 7-8 or whatever, or 8-7? How is it these teams are making bowl games? I mean, I get it. It's all basically a big giant money grab, but is that, I mean, why is it then that they have the playoff games, right? That they took, the big bowl games like the Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, right? So they took all those bowl games and made those part of the college playoffs, but yet they have all these like other little the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Yeah, I do have a Pop-Tarts Bowl hoodie, but yes, I think that's the most common one.
Okay, but I'm losing my mind over this a little bit. Is it just all about getting money? Is that what this is all about? I mean, I remember back in the day, there were like maybe 20 bowl games, maybe, right? And then that was it. And you had to be like the SEC champion, you had to be the Big 12 champion, you had to be the Big 10 champion, whatever. And then that's how they did it, right? But there wasn't like this 45 bowl games, that start December 1st and run for a month and a half. You know what I mean? I mean, or am I just talking snot here?
No,
I guess
you're not. You're not talking.
I don't
snot.
know. I have no idea how many bowl games there are this nowadays, right? The fact that you're a 6-6 team and you're making a bowl game, how is that possible? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Okay, there are 31 bowl games if we exclude the 12-team playoff. So that means only of those 85 teams, only 62 would make the bowl game. Okay.
Participation trophies?
That seems like that's what's going on.
Yeah,
here,
and there's
Joey.
also the possibility some teams that get snubbed to the playoff opt out like Notre Dame does, and that's why the teams in that top 85 would get consideration as a backup. But last year we had a 5-7 team make a bowl game because Notre Dame opted out. I don't think we're going to have that this time around. If 85 teams win 6 games, which is good.
That's what I'm getting at. Okay, I think you need to have more of a winning record. You know what I mean?
And here's what I would do. I would do a I know I know English Premier League does pro relegation. I feel like I would have a one bowl game. I'd call it the Pro Relegation Bowl. You put an FCS team against an FBS team, and if they win, they get to join the FBS, and the FBS team has to go down to the FCS. And it'd be like the worst team to qualify for a bowl game against the best team in the FCS. That would be the game. I think people would watch that. And both teams would have incentives to play their best players with what's on the line.
You see, and that's the other thing too, right?
You got opt-outs. Like a decade ago, we did an episode called Bowl Blank. It was BOWL and then a 4-letter curse word. That was the name of an episode on Talk Shoe that Joey Kerm and I did a decade ago. But like that was the golden age of college football where all the players participated in bowl games before Christian McCaffrey opted out of the bowl game. And then that created a trickle-down effect where more players opted out. And now it's become the norm.
And
Playoff.
Right? Even like now they're not opting out of national championship games, mind
and
you.
College football playoff games.
Right. They're not opting out of those. Okay. But they are opting out of these, Pop-Tart Bowl, which, you know what? I don't blame these kids. Okay. Because look, let's face it. That's one more chance that you potentially could get injured before the draft combine. Right? Because the draft combine is what? Late February, early March, whenever that is. Chris, you know the dates on those, but if you play that late January game for a bowl game and you get hurt, right, that totally messes you up now for your pro day. That messes you up now for the combine, right, and anything else like that, and you don't want to be getting messed up at that particular time. You don't want to have to.
The last top draft pick that played in their bowl game, Ron, was Bryce Young. He chose to play in the bowl game, risk injury. Same with Will Anderson Jr. Worked out well for both of them. They went in the top 3 of that draft.
Okay.
That's an outlier. That's like the last of the previous generation. We have not seen a first-round QB play in a bowl game over the last few years. I mean, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix. I think Penix and McCarthy were the only 2 QBs from the 2024 draft that played in their bowl game, and they both made the playoff that year.
Drew Allard played in his bowl games.
Yeah, when he was healthy.
Yeah, when
he was not in his draft year until he got injured this year.
Right. So. But still, though.
Yeah, he did. To his credit, he did. I give him credit for that.
And Will Howard.
Will Howard did too. He was a senior. Got overlooked at Kansas State.
But national championship.
Yeah, he did.
You're not sitting out that game, right? No. Right, not when you're Ohio State and you're going for the national championship. No, you're not sitting out that game. No.
Next team I'm going to preview is Texas A&M. They have 1 star player on their roster. That's Mario Craver. Mario Craver actually led the Texas A&M Aggies in receiving yards. He did. Not Casey Conception. Casey Conception got drafted in the first round, but Mario Craver actually led the team in receiving yards last year, but Conception had more receiving touchdowns. But Craver was a big part of Texas A&M's offense. You've got Dalton Brooks and Marcus Ratcliffe in the secondary at free safety and strong safety. Anto Saka's your edge rusher. You've got Marcel Reed at QB. Cohen Eccles takes over for Chase Bisontis. I was not high on Bisontis, but the Texas A&M left guard. I was higher on Armaj Reed Adams, but it's unfortunate what happened with Bisontis. He tore his MCL in the preseason opener. He's expected to miss most of this season. He's going to be most of this year is probably going to be out for the year.
Yeah. When you tear that, usually that's a couple months rehab on that, because all you have to do is look at Patrick Mahomes.
Yep, Des Ricks, Isaiah Horton, Ray Coney, Reuben Owens at running back, Julio Humphrey at corner. Ricky Gibson at corner. So they're Wilkin Formby at corner. So they a right tackle, not corner. But yeah, Texas A&M has some talent. Even with the loss of Conception, they have some talent coming back to the university. I think 7 wins is on the table. I think they'll start 3-0, but they got to play LSU in Death Valley in Week 4. That's probably their first loss. They play Arkansas in Week 5. They go to Missouri in Week 6. That could go either way. I think Missouri has the ability to upset them. They got the QB that they beat out Trinidad Chambliss for the job at Ole Miss before he got injured, transferred to Missouri. He's going to start at Missouri. So Missouri, for me, I think they are a dark horse offensively. Now, defensively, they don't have much.
Chris, real quick, because I know you buzzed past there pretty quick, but I say Texas A&M always does have talent. So I have a feeling somebody's going to rise up within that offense, especially. And will they have the athleticism Concepcion has? I don't know. But will they be really good players? I'd have to think so. Because
they're definitely going to do enough to make a bowl game, but I'd say the floor is 7-5. The ceiling's maybe 10-2 because they got to play LSU on the road. They got to play Ole Miss. They got to play Missouri on the road. They've got to play Alabama on the road. They got to play Oklahoma on the road, and they got to.
That's what I'm looking at right now. That's what I'm looking at right now.
And they got to play South Carolina on the road. Lenore Sellers took a 31-0 lead over them, and they came back and won that game. And then they got to play Texas at home to end the year. They lose to Texas, and they lose all these road games against quality opponents. They might not even make a bowl game. But I think they have too much talent and too many easy home games to not win a minimum of 6 games. So I think they're going to make a bowl game. Texas A&M feels like much more of a sure thing to make a bowl game than Vanderbilt. But I have them at 11 because I have A&M at 4-5 in the SEC.
Wow, there you go. That's pretty good.
Number 10, I'm debating between South Carolina and Auburn. I have South Carolina at 7-5. I have Auburn at 8. Auburn got for portal. The South Florida QB. South Carolina has Lenore Sellers. South Carolina, though, they have a really good edge rusher in Dylan Stewart, who I think is a top 20 talent. Jakari, he's back. They've got a good defensive tackle in Brownlow Dindy. Judge Collier's back at corner. He was a corner that was on my radar last year. Sellers is back. Nick Harbor is back. But Harbor, Nick Harbor's made Bruce Feldman's freak list for 3 years in a row, but he hasn't had that dominant 150 to 100 receptions, 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown season we've expected from Harbor. 6'4", 221. Some have him at 236, but huge size for a receiver, and he's projected to run a 4.3 40, but he hasn't had that breakout season on tape. Despite having all the athletic traits and the physical traits, he hasn't had that on tape for a number 1 receiver. That a star with athletic traits in college has. So he's got to have that for South Carolina to do anything more than 7 wins. He's got to have that, and Sellers also has to break out this year.
I was just going to say, Sellers is going to be, he's one of the top-ranked, most athletic type quarterbacks. He's one of those special ones, I think. If he can put it together this year and put some good tape out there, he has an opportunity, I think, to be one of the top draft picks in this coming draft. If he has a really good year and balls out, you know what I mean, and is able to do something there. So I also really like the edge rusher too with Dylan Stewart. That gives South Carolina a much better chance when you have offense and defense. You know what I mean? That gives them a much better chance. I like their chances better.
The corner that I thought would get drafted last year came back. Harbor's back at wide receiver. They've had a 4-star recruit start at left tackle as a true freshman. He's still starting. So South Carolina does have a lot of pieces. I think their floor, they're the most volatile SEC team, but their floor is 7-5. Their ceiling is 10-2. And
I'll agree with
that's
that.
if they beat Clemson on the road, they beat Florida on the road, and they beat Georgia at home.
Well, I think they'll be able to get a couple of those, at least one or two of those. You know what I mean?
So I might be undervaluing the Gamecocks, and I have Clemson at 6-6.
Well, you may not be, but the thing is, Chris, is that this season, as much as we can talk about these other guys, it's all about Lenore Sellers.
It is.
Here's what's going to happen. Sellers has the ability, but the problem is Sellers does not elevate his teammates. And that's a big thing for a quarterback, especially a star quarterback. Can you elevate? And so far, that is what has kept him down. Not the talent, because he makes amazing throws. He gets out of really bad situations, but he doesn't elevate his teammates. If
Sellers
he
is
can elevate
intriguing,
his
but he's
teammates,
polarizing for so many reasons. My potential
You know
grade
why,
on him
though?
is only a mere 86, which is what I had for Kenny Pickett. But unlike Pickett, I've got a 98 out of 99 for throwing power on Sellers. That when you're talking about arms, that's up there with guys like Cam Newton, Dante Culpepper. But the accuracy, the intangibles, the ability to motivate teammates at will, fire them up, that's not there with him.
Right, because, and I think he reminds me a lot of another quarterback that's playing in the league right now, but I'm not going to mention any names, but because he's that dual threat, because he's that type, he comes across as being a bit selfish. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And like he's kind of putting the team on his back and everything else like that. And, everybody's here to see me and blah, 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 that kind of thing. I mean, I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm really not, you know what I mean? Because I'm not in that locker room. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just hoping that that's not the case. And a lot of times when guys are like that, when they're a little bit standoffish, when they're not elevating their teammates, you know what I'm saying? And that I think is a flag for me. You might be able to be, ultra talented, but I really agree with what you said there, Joey. If they can't elevate their teammates, if they can't make guys better, if they're not putting their guys in a situation to be successful, all you have to do is look at like Jalen Hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like he sacrificed, because I think he's one of the best quarterbacks out there, but I think he sacrifices that ability to run and everything like that because he's trying to make that play. He's trying to make other guys around him better. I mean, that's just my observation.
Yeah, what has to happen for South Carolina to go 10-2? I think Dylan Stewart and Sellers have to carry that team on their backs. And we're talking South Carolina. They win the 7 games I projected them to win. They steal a game against Florida in the Swamp. They steal a game because I've got Clemson at 5-6, but they have to beat South Carolina to be bowl eligible. I've got Clemson at 5-6 this year, but they got to beat South Carolina in Clemson's home play of the season to be bowl eligible. That might be incentive enough for Clemson. But at the same token, it's like Sellers. He beat Clemson in South Carolina in Clemson when they had Klubnik in his first year as a starter. Now he's entering year 3 as a starter. So I mean, Sellers, if Sellers can get 37 to 4,000 yards, beat Clemson, beat Florida, and beat either Bama on the road with a new QB or Georgia at home, he can assert himself as a Heisman finalist. And I think and then Stewart could be a Lombardi finalist. I think those two things would have to happen for South Carolina to enter the 10-win SEC championship college football playoff conversation. Those two things would have to happen. And even if those two carried them to the playoff, I don't think it'd be enough once they got into the playoff. We'll see, though.
Yeah, we'll see for sure.
Well,
I like what's putting down.
Something Todd Monken said about quarterbacks is that once they get into the mode where they need to make the big play, it's hard to break that from them. And so I think that may be something that we're going to have to watch with Sellers, is because he's now in the mode to where he feels like he needs to make the big play instead of the play that's right in front of him. So he may need to watch and see if that's the case or not, because if it is, then breaking him of that may be a little bit of an issue.
That's a really good point, man. That's a really good point, because if the first instinct of that quarterback is to tuck the ball, which I think what's going on there, he needs to be able to see the bigger picture. He needs to be able to see more of the field instead of that hot read. If the hot read isn't there, then you can tuck the ball a little bit and roll out, but there's going to be somebody else open potentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of just tucking the ball and running right away.
Yeah, okay, so that's the top, that is number 10. The final team on my list that I have at 8-4, before Ron has to go, is Auburn. I'm sure Ron wishes he could stay for the entire, because we talked about Texas A&M at 11, South Carolina at 10. The final team in the bottom half of my SEC is Auburn. The reason I'm higher on them is they got Bowen Byram, who carried South Florida to road wins against teams like the Florida Gators. I think his presence at QB can get Auburn to 8-4. They have a very favorable home schedule with home games against. They get home games against Florida, Vanderbilt. I feel like they could beat LSU in a trap game, but it would be a war of attrition, and they'd have to play literally. Byram would literally have to play turnover-free ball in order for that to happen. Auburn does get Baylor and DJ Lagway to open up the year as well. So they got to go to Tennessee on the road, and that's a game, that's a tough environment. I mean, Bowen Byram, he went into Florida, but he didn't go into Tennessee. That's a much louder environment. So I think Auburn, I have Auburn at 9, so that's the top half. The final two teams that I have are Tennessee and Alabama. I have Alabama at 8 and Tennessee at 7. I'll explain why. Ron, I don't know how much time you've got. I know you'd like to stay for the entirety of the SEC. But,
I wish I could, man. I would, and I would love to talk about the NFC too.
I just saw the text message. I'm sorry. I just saw the text message.
No, that's okay. It's all good, bro. It's all good. No. I really, like I said, the SEC is they're going to be fighting for the crumbs. Okay. As far as I'm concerned this year, they're going to be fighting for those playoff crumbs. They're going to have all their teams are going to be fighting it out.
I only have 3 SEC teams making it this year.
That's what I mean, right? That's what I mean. I think they're going to be fighting it out this year. That you need to have teams that need to focus on getting to that point. You know what I mean? And so, I just don't. I don't.
There's
see
only
that
one way 5
SEC
teams could make the playoff. That's if Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss all went 10-2. We're in a 5-way tie for the SEC division, and in that scenario, Ron, the 2 teams that would meet in the SEC championship would be LSU and Ole Miss. And from a storyline standpoint, that is the best storyline, I think, of any storyline in the conference.
Okay, I was just going to check with you. You got LSU higher than.
I do not have LSU higher than. But I'm saying if Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, the top 5 favorites to win the conference, all went 10-2, after applying tiebreakers, Ole Miss and LSU would be the 2 that got to play in the SEC championship. If those teams all went 10-2, like a lot of experts are projecting.
Okay, all right.
I think that's the only way, Ron, we will see 5 teams in the playoff. I do not think that will happen. Personally,
I don't either. I don't either.
This
I think
is
you're going to get maybe
one
3.
of the toughest conferences in college football. At best, I see 3 10-2 teams.
Yeah,
at best.
Exactly.
So
yeah, man. Hey, Joey, it was a pleasure. I'm sorry I didn't get to do more time with you, man. Thank you, Chris, for having me on here. I wish I could stay a little longer. Listen, folks, you got to hop on over to Draft Utopia, get yourself signed up, get hooked into these simulators, man, because
we will have a link for that in the description on the YouTube channel.
Sure.
We will.
Man.
We've got the top 30 for every sport up except the WNBA. I finished cropping the photos for the top 30 players before Ron joined the call, and I'll email that as soon as the show's over. So that will be up today. And
see, the hardest working man in draft, man. He covers them all, right? Go on over to draftutopia.com, get signed up for sure. Thank you very much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on X at RNJ_media. You can also follow all the stuff we're doing over there at RNJ Media at the YouTube channel. Thanks very much, man. We'll catch you guys later.
that
You too.
RNJ Media. He's got the Prospect Watch podcast. He's got a lot of other cool shows. There's a show where he talks about the Steelers each week. I know you're not a fan of that, but he does do a lot of great work. And if you want to follow him, just go to RNJ Media and subscribe to the YouTube channel for their sports content. RNJ Media Sports. There's multiple RNJ Medias on YouTube, but RNJ Media Sports for Ron's content. Ron is all. I'm going to get to Alabama. I have them at 8-4 and 8 in the SEC. I know it's crazy for me to have them that low, but they have a leftover on the. I think they only have 2 on the offensive line. Both of their offensive tackles are your stars. So I don't remember a Bama team with much turnover. He's incredible. Bray Hubbard and Xavier Brown are star players. I have Bray Hubbard in the top 20 of our draft simulator. William actually did a scouting report for Bray Hubbard in the Draft Utopia 6-pack when we debuted that a few weeks ago. Xavier Brown's a guy who's been on my radar for 2 years. He's really good corner. They've also got Ryan Coleman Williams at receiver, dominant freshman season, and sort of regressed last year. Parrott, edge rusher, Dejon Lee. Alabama might have the best secondary in the entire SEC, but they have one quality offensive tackle in Michael Carroll. He's a right tackle, not a left tackle, and they've got a second edge rusher. So I love Alabama's edge rushers, and I love their secondary. Outside of that, I'm not high on Alabama. This is the lowest, and I love Ryan Williams. Outside of that, I am very bearish on Alabama this year, Joey. I think they could start 5-0, but they got to play Georgia at home. You're got a returning starter, Keelan Russell, a first-year starter, or Austin Mack if Mack beats out Russell. Alabama's got to go to Tennessee. They haven't won Neyland yet under DeBoer, and Heupel's won the last 2 against Alabama at Neyland Stadium. If Faison Brandon, their true freshman's on fire that day, like Nico Imaleva was, like Hendon Hooker was. They got to play Texas A&M. They will beat Texas A&M since that's in Tuscaloosa. They got to play LSU in Death Valley. And I have Vanderbilt and Jared Curtis upsetting Alabama, which probably won't happen, but Jared Curtis is a 5-star ball. They have an outside chance. I mean, that wasn't a big outlier when Pop beat a team in the country when it was Alabama a few years ago. So, I mean, Alabama's ceiling's 10-2, but their floor is 8-4. And if they go 10, Tigers to teams like LSU because of the multiple contests. I think they can beat the 2 freshman QB, but the head-to-head loss to LSU and Georgia would be why they miss out on the SEC championship. And that's the thing.
Yeah,
Alabama does have.
Yeah, I'm more concerned because I think the offense will be fine just because of the way that they do things on offense. I'm more concerned about the defense because they've lost some talent there in the last couple years, and it seems like it's getting thinner. And after last year, I think unless they replenished that defense during the offseason to I'm not going to say an overhaul, but to a large degree, I think that defense is going to have some trouble this year.
This feels like it could be Alabama's last dominant year defensively unless they have a really strong recruiting class. I think it'll be a down year for the offense, but I'm not worried about the offense long term because they did secure one of the top QBs in the 2027 recruiting class. They did just trying to think of his name. Okay, I'm going to try to pull up the QBs really quickly for 2027's recruiting cycle. Elijah Haven, 6'5", 205. He was expected to be one of the top recruits in the country. He's got the best NFL traits of any of the QBs in high school football. Okay, Gunnar Rivers has moved all the way up from 12 to number 4 on 27 Sports. I remember after his freshman year, he was a 2-star recruit. After his sophomore year, he was I guess he was a 3-star. He was a 2-star recruit heading into his freshman year. He was a 3-star recruit after his freshman year. He's now a 4-star recruit, and Phillip Rivers' son is now the number 4 QB in the 2027 recruiting class. So he's a 2-star after his freshman year, 3-star after his sophomore year, and 4-star after his junior year of high school. And now Gunnar Rivers is the number 4 QB in high school football, trailing only Israel Abrams, Elijah Haven, and Tra Taylor. Tra Taylor's going to Nebraska. Abrams is going to Miami, Florida next year, and Haven's going to Alabama. And I think Haven's good enough to beat out both. I think Haven would beat out both Keelan Russell and Austin Mack for the starting QB job at Alabama as a true freshman. That's how high I am on Haven. Like, if I had to make an educated guess, which QBs are from this group are going to be the top QBs in 2030, would be Haven and Rivers would be the top 2 guys for me right now. If I had to take an educated guess, 2026, which of the top 5 high school QBs will be a top 5 pick in 2030, which is a long freaking ways away. I don't like guessing this far out, but if I had to take a swing at that right now, I would say Haven and Rivers are 1 and 2 for 2030. But they both got to dominate their senior years of high school and then become day 1 starters in college before we even entertain that conversation, Joey. Both have a long journey ahead of them, but right now, those are my 2 favorite QBs in high school football. But
yeah, the only non-starter in college to ever really make anything in the pros was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And, well, we know how that went.
Yeah.
But for somebody like Rivers, hey, you got to make your way and become the starter in college before you can think about pros. So what I do is just like I did with Shedeur Sanders, because believe me, that tape's out there. All you have to do is find it.
Yeah, and we
When
were
they get into
talking
high
about
school,
Gunnar
when they get
Rivers
in junior
when he
or
was a
senior-
freshman, when he was a 2-star recruit.
Exactly.
Now he's a 4-star recruit
Exactly.
entering his senior year of high school, and he's the number 4 QB in the country,
Yeah.
the best 4-star QB in the country, behind the 3 5-star recruits.
Exactly.
So
that's where I was getting. I was going to say, if we start looking at them early, that tape's out there, guys. Just look at it, and then we can look at them and be prepared coming in. It's like the same way we do with that we have with Sanders and Brady and 16,000 other quarterbacks that have come up through, high school. I mean, it's not like the old days when we don't have access. If the tape's out there, you'll find it.
The reason I love Elijah Haven, Joey, is very simple. He's strength of Jamarcus Russell at LSU without the body fat at 6'6", 230, and he's also got the accuracy of a Lamar Jackson. That is why I love Elijah Haven as a prospect. And that's a valid reason to admire his talent if you're a football fan. That's a valid reason. But I also think Rivers has an advantage over Haven in the sense that he's had to deal with more adversity whereas Haven's been handed the keys to a 5-star recruit because of his physical traits and his God-given talent. Whereas Gunnar Rivers, even though he's Philip Rivers' oldest son, he's had that chip on his shoulder ever since his freshman year when he was only a 2-star recruit, not on a lot of radars. He's on our radar, but he wasn't on a lot of other recruiting radars at the time compared to now.
Well, that's because he was Philip Rivers' son. I mean, he's always going to have that chip.
That's true.
If he isn't recruited by, 30 different colleges, he's going to have that chip. So, I mean, it's always going to be there.
Yeah. But enough about these high school recruits. Let's get into the Tennessee Volunteers. Why this is an intriguing team. I think they are a team that could play spoiler. It just depends on how good being this year. Because Tennessee, yes, they did lose. Tennessee did lose some talent, but they also have some decent players. Deshaun Bishop. I think Bishop may end up being better than who's the running back that the Browns got out of Tennessee? Forgot his name. Is it
Sampson?
Dylan Sampson. Yeah. Dylan Sampson ran for 2,000 yards, but I always viewed him as a floor player versus a ceiling player. But Deshaun Bishop, he took over for Sampson last year. He's considered Tennessee's best player. They've got Wendell Moe Jr. at left guard. They've got 2 really good linebackers in Amari Campbell and Arian Carter at the Mike and the Will. Braylon Staley's their number 1 receiver. David Sanders Jr. played right tackle as a true freshman, but he's moving over to the blind side. And then they've got Faison Brandon, the 5-star recruit, as their quarterback. Kayan Lee, Mike at corner. Mike Matthews is a number 2 receiver. So, I mean, Tennessee has some really good weapons, a nice supporting cast for their young QB. And if their young 5-star QB can come in and make an impact, I think he can. I think Faison Brandon and Jared Curtis are the 2 best recruits, and they're both projected to be day 1 starters. So Tennessee's got some home games against Texas, Alabama. They play South Carolina on the road. They don't play Georgia this year. If Tennessee can go undefeated at home, which I don't even think Tennessee can do, as much as I love Tennessee, I just don't. I don't love Tennessee. You could ask Van Ransom, but as much as people would like to see Tennessee have a resurgence this year, they get LSU at home, they get Alabama at home, and they get Texas at home. They would have to win all 3 of those. They'd have to beat Vanderbilt on the road, and they'd have to beat either South Carolina or Texas A&M to sniff the SEC championship. That's not happening with a freshman QB. And if the freshman QB plays awful, teams like Arkansas could steal 1 on the road against Tennessee. Nico Imaleva struggled against Arkansas in his freshman year. So Tennessee does feel like a wild card in a sense, because I think their floor is 6-6, but their ceiling's 10-2, and I have them at 8-4. So, which I think is a fair evaluation. If I had them at 9-3 or 10-2, there might be a little big orange bias, but I have them at 8-4 and 5, which I think is a respectable and fair evaluation. I have them finishing 7th among SEC teams. And, they've always had the ability to be great, but the problem is they haven't been able to get a QB that they could keep multiple years. Nico Imaleva was supposed to be that guy, then he transferred to UCLA.
Yeah, Tennessee will play fast, and they will take advantage of the wider hash marks on a college football field the same way they do every year, and they'll finish over 500 and get a bowl game the same way they do every year. Well, the only question for them is, will they get a playoff? That's what they should be asking.
Yeah. I do think Tennessee will get back to the playoff at some point within the next decade, because they're going to have Faison Brandon for the next 3 seasons. Oh, and right now, Ole Miss and Tennessee are the favorites to land Marshall Manning. He's not. I don't think he's eligible. I think he's entering his freshman year of high school this season, so he would not be eligible for college football until 2030 at the earliest. Because 26, 27 freshman year, yeah, that means 29, 2030 is his senior season. So, yeah, if Faison, the best case scenario for Tennessee is Faison Brandon plays all 4 years at Tennessee, and then they just get Marshall Manning, and they're able to reload at quarterback. And they get another guy that can play for 3 to 4 years. And if that happens, and they're able to get both 4 years of Brandon and 4 years of Marshall Manning, because right now Marshall Manning, the early favorites are Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Texas. But Tennessee is the leader of those three, with Ole Miss at 2 because of Peyton and Eli's history with both programs, and Arch Manning's history with Ole Miss as well. But, you know, if Tennessee's able to get 4 years of Faison Brandon and 4 years of Marshall Manning, I think they will win a championship in the college football playoff at some point in the next decade, Joey, as crazy as that sounds. Because Heupel's got them heading in the right direction for the first time since they've had Fulmer. The problem is they just haven't had enough pieces on their 22-man roster to make that championship push. If you get Brandon, then you get Manning after that, Marshall Manning, you could have an 8-year window to bring a championship to Tennessee. Or we'll see what happens in conclusions with Heupel, because he's done a good job with the program considering what resources he's had. All right.
Yeah, and I agree that he's a good coach, and he will continue to keep that team competitive. Now, I'm not as high as you, but
they've been able to reload at QB
I think he'll do a nice
losing
job
Nico
for the
Imolator to the
future.
portal. They got Aguilar last year as a stopgap. Now you got a true freshman Faison Brandon. You keep him, and then you get Marshall Manning in 2030. You have a 7 to 8 year window to win a championship if you build talent around your quarterback and you recruit other good players to complement your QB. And you get not just the 5-star recruits, but the right players and right culture fits for the program too. If you get the right players, I think it is possible. But I would right now I would give Tennessee's odds of winning a championship in the next 8 years anywhere from 12.5% to 20%. They got to actually secure Marshall Manning after they get Brandon number up to 30-40%. And I'm not going to speculate on where Marshall Manning's going to play. That doesn't feel appropriate. So let's move on to the next team. Oklahoma is, I've got 3 teams going 6-3 in the SEC. Missouri, LSU, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's the odd 8-4 man out, so they are gonna finish just outside the top 5. But Oklahoma's best player on defense is actually a guy that was a rotational player last year, David Stone. He was a rotational player behind Grayson Halton last year and Jaden Jackson. But David Stone, he only came in on third down situations last year, but he was very dominant stuffer. David Stone, despite being a backup last year, is my number 1 defensive tackle in this year's draft from a ceiling standpoint. I also like Eli Bowen and Isaiah Satanga III. Those are the 3 players that I think have that star Pro Bowl upside at the next level if they get an opportunity to play. Mateer is probably the next guy up. I have Mateer. I think right now I've got Mateer and Gunnar Stockton tied for QB 4 in the SEC. And I would give Stockton a slight edge because he's been past the first round of the playoff. Even though neither guy could get to the semis last year, he's at least been to the Final 8. He won an SEC title, which feels like more than you can say about Mateer. I mean, this team, they've got Taylor Wine edge at left end. They did lose Robert Spears Jennings at free safety, and they lost their edge rusher to the Chiefs. I forgot his name, but I know they had an edge rusher that the Chiefs took in the second round. I just forgot the name. They did lose some talent. Okay, it's not like Oklahoma can't. Oklahoma, I have they got what is his name? I'm just R. Mason Thomas in the second round. The Chiefs did. So they lost R. Mason Thomas at right end, but they have a good left end. They do have the rest of the defensive line pretty much back. Kip Lewis is back at middle linebacker. They've got Tate Sandell at kicker. Trell Harris is their number 2 receiver, and Jaden Jackson, who started next to Brayton Halton, is going to complement David Stone, former 5-star recruit who was a 2027 first-round pick in a lot of mock drafts last year. So Oklahoma does have some pieces, but they got to play Michigan on the road. They got to play Georgia on the road. They got to play Texas in the Red River Shootout, which is a neutral site game. They got to play Missouri on the road, and Missouri's got the best left tackle and running back in the entire conference, in my opinion. Although you can make a case for Ahmad Hardy a little bit more. I mean, he put Louisiana Monroe on the map, and he improved at Missouri last year. So for me, I have Missouri at 9-3. I've got Oklahoma at 8-4. But if they could beat, I think their best chance at a 10-2 record is they win the Red River Shootout versus Texas, and they beat Missouri on the road, which I think are both achievable for Oklahoma. But they are definitely going to lose. I think they are definitely going to lose to Michigan in week 2 in Ann Arbor on Big Noon Kickoff, and they're going to lose to Georgia and Athens. I think they're going to lose both of those games. They do have Michael Fasusi at left tackle as well. He was a 5-star recruit who started at left tackle as a true freshman too. So I do like what Oklahoma has, but I think for them to make the SEC championship, they got to win 3 of the 4 games I'm projecting them to lose while winning the other 8 games. And the other thing I'm looking at, Joey, is they also have to win 2 of those 4 games I project them to lose to have a shot at the playoff. 3 of those 4 if they want to be in the SEC championship. I'm not saying they can't do it. I just think they're a long shot to make it to the SEC championship, Joey. And I think that's more than a fair take.
That's fair. I do disagree with you, though, in how you said that they have to win. You basically said they have to win the games they're supposed to win. I think they're going to have to get an upset against a team like Georgia to elevate into that spot.
If they win the games they're supposed to win, they can go 8-4. But in order for them to make the college football playoff, they're going to have to upset 2 of the 4 teams. Michigan on the road, Missouri on the road, and Texas in the Red River Shootout, or Georgia on the road. They're going to have to upset 3 of those 4 teams to make the SEC championship, 2 of those 4 teams to be in consideration for an at-large bid in the playoff. 8-4 is just not going to get them in the playoff. That's why Oklahoma's outside my top 5.
If they beat even if they beat one of either Texas
or Georgia. If they lose to Georgia, they beat Michigan and Ann Arbor, they beat Texas in the Red River Shootout, which is neutral site, and they beat Missouri and Columbia, which is they will beat 3 of those teams. Realistically, they'll probably lose to Georgia in one of those 3 and end the year 10-2. But if they're able to beat those 3 teams and only lose to Georgia, they are Georgia's opponent in the SEC championship.
Yeah, but if we are realistic about it, Georgia and Texas could be equal to beating 2 of those other teams if they just beat one of them.
Yeah.
If you're realistic about where Texas and Georgia could be by the time they play, then that could be the equivalent of beating Michigan and winning the Red River Shootout.
Yeah. That's true. All right. The final teams in my top 5, I have Ole Miss, Texas, and Georgia. I'm going to put Missouri at 5. I know Simulator has Missouri at 4 in the SEC. I'm going to put them at 5 because Missouri, they are the beneficiary of a weak strength of schedule. They get Southeast Louisiana, at home in the opener. They travel to Kansas, who lost Jalen Daniels. They host Troy. They travel to Mississippi State. They host Florida and Texas A&M. As bold as it sounds, I have Missouri starting 6-0. I do. I have Missouri starting 6-0. And then I have them playing Ole Miss in Week 7. And I have Ole Miss. I think I have Ole Miss losing one game at that point in the season. No. I think I have Ole Miss and Missouri both undefeated heading into that Week 7 game. So if that's the case, Oxford's going to be very happy knowing they'll probably get 2 college game day games, the LSU game in Week 3 as well as the Missouri game in Week 7. If Missouri's 6-0, they'll probably end up with 2 game day games. So, which is a rare feat for Ole Miss. They're not a school that usually gets 2 game days. They usually get 1. But this would be the exception to that rule. I think if Missouri and them are both 6-0 in Week 7, game day would return to Oxford for the second meeting. And then after that, Missouri has a bye week. They get Arkansas on the road. I think that's a win. I think Missouri, if they could beat Texas at home, they could make the SEC championship. But I have Missouri losing to Texas and to Georgia. And then I have them beating Kentucky and Oklahoma to end the year. So while I have Missouri at 9-3, I didn't let the number of home games they have affect my bias towards what I think they can do. And they got the quarterback that beat out Trinidad Chambliss for the starting QB job at Ole Miss last year. They got him in the portal after he got injured. So that's another key player on that offense that you have to account for. And I think he can be the man at Missouri this year. So I really do. And then they also have Caden Lee at wide receiver. They had Luther Burden and Kevin Coleman Jr. at wide receiver the last 2 years. I've got an 88 for potential on Caden Lee. Jamal Roberts is the running back. Brett Norfleet's the tight end. Dominic Gludis is the center. They've only got one defensive player with upside to develop into a borderline starter in the NFL. It's Chris Graves Jr. at corner. The rest of the defense, front 7, isn't great. They lost Ryan Young. So I mean, I think they can go 9-3 if the offense is perfect, but even then, I don't think 9-3 will be enough to make the playoff, especially if you lose to both Texas and Georgia and you have Texas Stadium late. If you lose to Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss, who are my top 3 SEC teams this year, the only 3 SEC teams I have winning 10 games, if you lose to all 3 of those games, I just don't think that's good enough to make the playoff. And I think the committee will say, oh, they're a New Year's 6 bowl candidate, but they're not a playoff candidate. And I'd agree with that. So I have Missouri at number 5 in my SEC rankings. I might be drinking a little bit too much black and gold Kool-Aid, but I think Missouri has a legit shot to finish in the top 5.
That's licorice flavored poison.
All right, next up, LSU. I have 9-3, but again, I have LSU losing 3 road games. I have them beating Alabama and Texas at home, but I have them losing to Ole Miss. I have them losing to Tennessee on the road, and I have Bowen Byram and Auburn beating them. If they beat Tennessee and Auburn on the road, this team would play Georgia in the SEC title. And in the scenario where Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, Georgia, and LSU all go 10-2, Ole Miss plays LSU in the SEC championship. Lane Kiffin versus his former team. And I think that's the best storylines you could have in the SEC this year for an SEC title game. I don't think that's the matchup we'll get, but from a storyline standpoint, yeah, that's the best matchup. LSU's interesting because LSU's interesting for a few reasons, Joey. And I think the most compelling thing about this LSU team, you've got a lot of talent back. I have Jordan Seaton in the top 20 of our draft simulator. Colorado left tackle got to Louisiana. He was 6'5", 330. He got all the way down to 307. He lost 23 pounds, and he added 7 pounds of muscle in one offseason. After leaving Colorado to go to LSU. After after leaving Colorado to go to LSU, which is famous for their food, Joey. LSU is famous for their food. Louisiana is famous for their food as a state as a whole. So it's like, yeah, the fact that he was able to lose all that weight in a place which has far more culinary culture than Colorado. No offense to Colorado. Louisiana has far more culinary culture than Colorado as a food state. And he's able to, that tells me everything I need to know about George Seaton's self-control, Joey.
Well, the thing is, well, you can look at Louisiana and think it's all carbs. It's not. I mean, you have some types of chicken and everything else that are just seasoned to perfection, no carbs. You know, if he comes across a chicken dish that he thinks is just perfectly seasoned, he can be eating that thing all day. Because, I mean, Cajun chicken, who don't like Cajun chicken? I mean, so that really doesn't surprise me as much. What I'd be concerned about is the same thing as so many very good offensive linemen is the knees. It's like, because Seaton did have some knee trouble. I don't remember if he missed games for it, but, you know, did he get the weight down before it became something that's a real concern? So I think we're going to find that out this year, because if he goes out there and plays every game, then we're going to know that, hey, he got to it before it became a major issue. And if that's the case, I mean, Seaton could be one of these guys that pops up into the middle, late first round, either as a left tackle or right tackle.
If Jordan Seaton had knee issues, Joey, it's probably from high school, because he started 22 games at Colorado his first 2 seasons before entering the portal. So
okay, so it's something minor.
At high school to college, because the durability was there when he was playing for Phil Lodeholt and Coach Prime at Colorado.
Yeah, so it was probably minor stuff that was taken care of during the offseason and not ever looked at again, which is definitely good. Because I did hear that there were some things, but I didn't think they were very serious. You just confirmed they weren't very serious. So he got everything taken care of quick, so he should have a great future ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's our 4th best offensive tackle, but he's in our top 20. We've got Gooseby, Caden Green, and Carter Smith of Indiana as our top 4 tackles for this draft. My top 4. I've got all 4 of those guys in the top 20, by the way, on the draft simulator. I haven't updated the mock yet, but it's like, yeah, it's a greater year to get a tackle than last, because I think Caden Green, a lot of people are projecting Caden Green to guard instead of tackle, and that's fair because he spent his first 2 years at left guard, but he also, because he chose to come back to Missouri, now he's got 2 years at left tackle on his resume too. So an argument can be made that he can play either position in the NFL. Because of the experience, 2 years of experience at both positions.
Miami's left tackle, Miami's right tackle was considered to be moved to left tackle, moved to guard last year. Austin Barber, who was drafted by the Browns, was a left tackle, was moved to right tackle last year. Spencer Fano was a right tackle, moved to left tackle. I mean, last year's tackle class was just it was weird. All the moving parts that were involved.
I had a 95 on Maui Goa and a 93 on Fano. I have a 96 on Carter Smith, a 95 on Green, a 94 on Gooseby, and a 93 on Seaton. So looking back on it, this class looks a lot better than last year's class. But I think the Browns got the right player for their system with Fano. So I'm going to leave it at that.
They did, but so did I'm not. Is Mino
if one of those 4 tackles fell to the Browns, Andrew Berry said, we're going to take one of those tackles and move Fano to right tackle, I wouldn't have an issue with that. But Fano might. But I don't think that's going to come up unless the Browns miss the playoffs or unless both their pick and the
Or
Rams
unless
pick
they get
the
a
top
good
20.
pick and one of those guys just happened to fall into their lap, and then it's like pick's too good to pass up. And at that
And then they can move
case,
Titus Howard in a trade, even though they won't get as much as the Texans. They could move him at that point if his injury history continued to be a liability,
Yeah,
or they could
because
move him
they've
inside
already-
the guard. That too.
well, they've already said that they're playing Austin Barber's getting some snaps at guard, so now they'd have a right guard. They'd be able to move Fano over to right tackle, and they would have a, top 10, top 20 left tackle.
I thought the competition was between the Tevin Jenkins and the Kansas State left tackle, that KT Levinston, that moved inside to guard once he got to the NFL.
They've been moving. Yeah, they've been moving the right guard position around. Elton Jenkins has had a few snaps there. Austin Barber's had a few snaps there. But Tevin Jenkins is going to be the starting right guard, because they were talking about Brailsford and they thought he could start. But I think what happened late in minicamp, he hurt his thumb, because I was noticing some errant snaps. And he really hasn't played much at all in training camp. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be Elton Jenkins at center and Tevin Jenkins at right guard.
Yeah, and Zion Johnson at left guard. But let's get back to LSU. Jordan Seaton. We got a little sidetracked with Seaton and Spano and the Browns, but I appreciate the update. We're going to give you the AFC North next week.
And talking about offensive linemen gets us pumped up.
It does. Williams' number one tight end, Trey'Dez Green, is on LSU. My number one tight end is Terrence Carter Jr. To be fair to William, I've got a 92 Green. Both Green very easily overtake Carter. Most believe he will. And I've got the Oregon tight end, who we're going to talk about next week, Jelani Johnson, is my tight end 3. A lot of people have Jelani Johnson as tight end 1. Some think he's better than Sadiq, which is crazy, but that's the type of traction he's generated. Weeks is the middle linebacker. Same guy who was dating Lane Kiffin's daughter last year. I think they're still together, but I'd rather comment on the LSU team versus Weeks, Mr. Weeks' relationship. Jackson Harris, wide receiver. Prince Umanian, I think he's the younger brother of Princely Umanian's their edge rusher. Ty Benefield at free safety. DJ Pickett at corner. They did lose Ashton Stamps in the portal, but they have Jace Brown at receiver. Braylon Moore is the center. And Cade Durham and Harlan Berry are splitting carries at running back. They've also got Dominic McKinney at defensive tackle. Dominic McKinley, I think he might be the son of Bryant McKinney. I'm not sure. And then the third receiver, son of Gene Wilson, at receiver as a slot receiver. PJ Woodland at corner. TJ Daughtery at will linebacker, and then they've got Sam Levitt, who I think I mentioned earlier, at QB. So LSU's got a pretty complete team. I've got them finishing 9-3. That's their floor. If they lose to Ole Miss, Auburn, actually, I would argue LSU's floor is 7-5, because if they lose to Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn on the road, and then they lose to Alabama and Texas at home, they finish 7-5. If they beat everyone they're supposed to beat at home, and they beat Tennessee and Auburn on the road, their ceiling's probably 11-1 with an SEC title game appearance. I think they go 9-3. They are 4th in the SEC for me. I've made some pretty bold predictions. I've got BYU beating Kansas State, who doesn't have to play Texas Tech, Utah, or BYU, the top 3 teams in the Big 12 this season. So I've got Kansas State going 12-0, losing the Big 12 title to BYU, whose only loss came to Notre Dame. But Utah hosts BYU, and if Utah beats BYU without Kyle Whittingham, who left for Michigan, they could win the Big 12 too. Texas Tech has to play Mestamaker at Oklahoma State on the road, and I just got a feeling that's going to be the trap game where the Red Raiders lose one in this season. I mean, last year Arizona State was the trap game for Texas Tech, since they had trouble beating Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson on the road. So I feel like that would be the trap game for the Red Raiders this year. But an 11-1 Red Raiders team would still make the playoff. Same with a 12-1 BYU team that won the Big 12 if they do draw Kansas State in the Big 12 championship instead of Texas Tech. So, I mean, I'm looking at a lot of these teams here. I think LSU's ceiling is 11-1 with an SEC title game appearance. Their floor is 9. Their floor is 7-5. I have them at 9-3, finishing 4th in the conference. I think that's a fair projection. But maybe Joey disagrees with me on a couple of games. Like, for example, they probably lose one of the home games. Winning them probably beat either team on the right 3, but we disagree on a few of the games in their season outlook. But overall, a pretty good roster on paper. I think LSU should be in the conversation to be one of the top teams in the SEC once again. Ole Miss, I have them at 10-2, but their ceiling is probably 11-1. They have Trinidad Chambliss, my top QB, my top SEC QB on the Draft Simulator. No, I've got Arch Manning as QB6 right now, but Arch Manning could very easily end up as QB1. We'll get to Arch Manning after we get to Ole Miss. And I think Ole Miss with Chambliss and Lacey, they're the top 2 players. I also think Perkins and Eccles could end up in the back end of the first round. But I think Ole Miss, those 4 players they have with Pro Bowl upside could all end up being first-round picks in April's NFL draft. Jamarius Brown, their second defensive tackle. Keaton Thomas at Sam. They've got Oates at defensive tackle. Luke Haas, who missed all last year at tight end, is back. He's healthy. So his target share will increase with the Ole Miss receivers turning pro. And Deuce Alexander is Ole Miss. He was the slot receiver last year. Canario's back kicker. They have a corner named Jay Crawford. That is the name, but Ole Miss corner named Jay. How weird would be a draft order? Jay Crawford, Ole Miss, and then interviewed by Jay Crawford. That'd be pretty crazy, but yeah. It could happen in the late round soon. You never know. Jalen Braxton. I do like Ole Miss on paper. I think Ole Miss, I have them at 10-2 on the year. I have them starting 6-0, beating Missouri in Week 7 to get to 6-0 after the Week 5 bye week. So I have them at 6-0, and then after they play Missouri, they travel to Texas. They're going to lose that game. I have them beating Auburn. I have them beating Georgia, handing Georgia their only regular season loss, with Georgia traveling to Ole Miss. Remember, they did go into Georgia and win that game with Chambliss last year, and Dart couldn't even beat Georgia. So, and then you got Oklahoma and John Mateer. So I think John Mateer could upset Ole Miss, but Ole Miss, they're going to lose to Texas, and they're either going to lose to Georgia at home or Oklahoma. That's why they are outside of the SEC championship. If they just win one of the 2 road games I predict against Oklahoma or Texas, they're in the SEC championship because they own the head-to-head tiebreaker over Georgia in the event where Georgia and Ole Miss both finish with the same conference record. But I have them just outside the SEC championship because Texas beat them head-to-head in Austin. So Texas goes to the SEC championship with a head-to-head win. He did a Heisman article for Draft Utopia. It's on our Facebook page. It's the only article I post this week because I've been busy before football season starts so that we have at least a first round we can build upon, and then my work's less tedious. But yeah, if Ole Miss and Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU all go 10-2, Missouri, Ole Miss would play LSU in the SEC title game. I think that's the only path for Chambliss to win the Heisman, Joey. But if Ole Miss gets to an SEC title game and they win it, I do think Chambliss, like Wes predicted, wins the Heisman. He's got Jeremiah Smith as his Heisman runner-up. That is my Heisman runner-up as well. I've got Carr winning the Heisman, by the way. C.J. Carr, the Notre Dame QB. I've got Notre Dame going 12-0, and they're tough. South Bend. I've got winning the Heisman, so yeah. It's a little bit out there, but William really liked that prediction. So, all right.
Well, whoever plays best at quarterback is going to win the Heisman. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Heisman. But yeah, we've got 2 teams left, Texas and Georgia. Texas, I have them losing to LSU on the road, and I think I have them losing to who's the second team I have? I have them I have Texas beating Ohio State, but its number 2 corner came back, and Devin Sanchez, the 5-star recruit that sat out last year, is going to be starting. Ohio State to test Arch Manning once again. I think Texas will have enough to beat them in Austin, but it'll be a game where Arch Manning has to work for where he's just handed a victory. He'll have to work for the win, but Texas has to travel to Texas A&M, and they got to travel to LSU. I think those are the 2. I have them in the SEC championship losing to Georgia, but if they're healthy entering the college football playoff, I think they can go on a bigger run in the playoff than Georgia can. And then I've got Georgia winning the whole thing. Yeah, but Texas, I'll talk about some of their key players. I'll get to Georgia's key players. I want to get in these NFL previews. It's almost noon. We got 8 NFL previews plus the Draft Utopia 6-pack. I'll wait and see if William gets here. We'll do the 6-pack at the end because I've got a feeling Joey's going to want to be out by 1 with the Browns game starting. So I'm going to try to quickly move this along here.
I'm going to be out before that because I got phone calls to make.
So, all right.
I'm trying to hold off for William, but I've got to be out of here pretty soon.
I'm guessing it's going to be 12:30, 12:15-ish. The deadline is for you. I could be wrong on that estimate, but
yeah, I'll push it back.
Guess at the moment.
Yeah, I'll push you minutes to give William a chance to get in here, but
Simmons, Goolsby, Cam Coleman, Biles, Arch Manning. I do like this Texas team on paper.
Okay.
A lot of talent coming back. I think they're a top. Ryan Wingo. They got a lot of talent, but I don't know if Texas can win the SEC title. Georgia just feels like a more experienced. Texas has 4 players with first-round grades in our draft simulator: Arch Manning, Cam Coleman, Goolsby at left tackle, and Colin Simmons, the best edge rusher in the country. Georgia's got KJ Bolden. They've got Ernest Green III at left tackle, Ellis Robinson at corner, Nate Frazier at running back, Drew Bobo at center. They've got Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, Raylan Wilson at Mike linebacker, Chris Cole at will, Elijah Griffin, former 5-star recruit, entering his sophomore year at defensive tackle, Elijah Griffin in 2028, Jamari Riddle at strong safety. Barnes is also at strong safety. So they've got 3 really good safeties. Woodring at kicker, Chauncey Bowens as the backup running back, Isaiah Carrion at secondary wide receiver, Justin Williams is their second Mike linebacker. Just a very stacked team on paper just in terms of their own. So, yes, that is SEC. I'm sorry, but Joey's in our William is. I'm hoping William shows up. He said he was feeling better, but I don't know if he's going to make it. But to be fair, you were busy the first last 2 Saturdays with work. So if I don't get William this time, he needs to recover. If he can't make it, I'd be a hypocrite because I gave Joey time he needed to. So. All right, let's get into these NFL previews here. I'm going to start. This is the part of the show where I'm going to start screen sharing the rosters, depth charts. I'm going to start with Kerm's Cowboys. I could text Kerm or call Kerm, but due to time constraints, I'm not going to. If the Browns didn't play at 1, he didn't have personal stuff to deal with, I probably would make that time, but we are running on a tight clock here. So I'm going to pivot, and we're going to get in these NFL previews, and hopefully, William Yanish, if you're listening, you can join us. And Joey's still here. He's just turning off his screen, preparing for oh no, his screen got minimized because I changed the camera. That's why. But I'm looking at the Cowboys here. I'm gonna go through as many of these teams as I can. Joey probably won't be here for all the previews, but we'll open up next week because I know Joey wants to talk about the North, and I time constraints today probably wouldn't work as far as that goes logistically. We'll have a much
and
as fast is because the bottom key, which I use to scroll, I get a pain in the ass. So for anyone wondering why there's technical difficulties behind the scenes, that's why. Now,
did you try to get one of
Cowboys
those expensive
offense, they've got
mouses
Pickens and
that
Lamb.
need 16 different ways to install?
Yeah, I have a mouse thing but it requires a USB.
No.
And I'll look into that after the show, okay? I probably should if the key on this computer isn't working. I probably should look into it. But looking at the Cowboys, Guyton, Smith, Beatty, Booker, offense back. I think 11 being the worst. Because if everyone on this offense is held, I felt like the Cowboys should have upgraded its slot receiver. I don't like what they currently have at slot receiver. Flournoy, Scantling, Tyler Johnson, Anthony Smith, Denzel Mims. There's not a guy that separates himself from this group of 5 receiver. There's not a clear-cut guy that separates himself. And the Cowboys traded their first-round pick to the Jets, so I think they probably will get a receiver in the second round with their first pick, if I had to guess right now. Like, just go off needs. But as long as the offense stays healthy, this is going to be one of the best offenses in the league. This says the Cowboys are moving from a 43 to a 34 defense. Who the hell is the defensive coordinator for Dallas? Do we know? Who's taken over for, I think it does list the defensive coordinators and the coaching staff below at the bottom. Christian Parker takes over for Brian Schottenheimer's defense. I know it was their DC last year. I think it was the former Bears head coach. Was it the Bears head coach that got fired from the Bears and then came to Dallas as a defensive coordinator? Dennis Allen. I think that was their defensive coordinator last year. He ran the traditional 43 defense, but new guy probably prefers the 34. But regardless, you've got a lot of guys that are interchangeable. Winters, Gary, Izaraku, Overshoner, all guys that have experience in both schemes. And then on the defensive line, Clark, Tito Agbanino, and Williams also have experience in both schemes. So they've got a lot of deep players in the front seven with experience in both the 40. And got some decent depth players: Overton, Bullard, James Houston the fourth, Barham. I was not as high on Barham as West was, but I like him as a backup. Lawrence I like as a rotational. So I do like their depth on the front seven. The depth on the front seven, they didn't have star players on the front seven last year. I feel like they patched that up, and the depth on the front seven is actually better than it's been in years. As much as I don't want to admit that, that is the reality, Joey. And then you got Jacoby Durant in free agency to pair with Bland. You also got Jalen Thompson, the Cardinals free safety, to pair with Malik Hooker. And you got drafted Caleb Downs. He's projected to play at nickel because of the safety, the veteran safeties you have. If one of them gets injured, Downs will move inside to strong safety or free safety, and Rebel will play nickel. So, good.
Considering what I've seen of it, I wouldn't be too thrilled at the Cardinals safety that they got.
mean, I put Baker. Just that, based on to my last comment there, being Cowboys. I think the Cowboys is I've got two NFC East teams going 10-7, and Joey had this team in first place at the end of September. I had them in first place at one point as well, but it did not. But I have Dallas at 2-1 after the 3-2. But I have them losing the Giants. But if they beat or if they beat the Texans in Houston after going to Brazil to play the Ravens, you are looking at a 4-0, 5-0 floor. And that's the type of start they're going to need to make. After the first of the season, the schedule gets a lot harder. Oh, I wasn't sharing the tab. Okay. All right. Joey has the Cowboys beating the Giants, by the way. I remember when we did our show back in May, he had the Cowboys in first place after September, but he had them collapsing epically, finishing last in the division, tied with Washington to end the season at 8. I think we both had the Cowboys. I had the Cowboys at 8-9, I think. I had them at 7-10. I thought I had them at 8-9, but I guess I had them at 7-10, but I mean, to be fair, they do have more home games than they have away games. I think they're going to be one of the tougher teams in the league, but they're going to have to steal some road games if they want to reach that 10-7, 11-6 ceiling I have. They're going to have to steal some road games. And starting 5-0 pretty much guarantees they'll be 9-8, but nothing else is guaranteed. Because, you see the first 5 games at Giants Sunday Night Football versus Commanders versus Ravens in Brazil, at Texans versus Buccaneers Thursday night. You start 5-0, you're in the driver's seat to actually do something. You get the Packers and Eagles on the road. You get the Cardinals at home. That might be a loss. I have Dallas winning that game, but the Cardinals did beat Dallas on Monday Night Football with Brissett last year. They look a lot better on paper versus now after 2 preseason games. They got to play the Colts in Indy. I'm going to give the Colts a win there. I've got the Niners handing the Cowboys a home loss, and then I've got the Eagles beating the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So those are the 2 home losses, and then I've got the Cowboys playing the Titans in Jerry World Week 11. There are some games Dallas can win, but there's also some games they could very easily lose. I think they've got to beat the Niners. They got to beat the Eagles. They got to beat the Texans and Giants in Week 1 if they want to go 11-6 and win the division. They have to win those 4 games. Those are the 4 losses I think they would have the best chance of flipping. Maybe the loss against the Colts. Maybe that's a game they flip. Because after Thanksgiving, their schedule gets freaking brutal. At Seattle, at the Rams. They get the Jaguars in Dallas. They get the Giants in Dallas. And then they go to Washington to end the season. So I think the Cowboys, if they want to win the division at 11-6, I think they're going to have to flip 4 of their 5 games between the season opener and the Week 12 game on Thanksgiving against the Eagles. They're going to have to flip 4 of those 5 games at Giants, at Texans versus Niners versus Eagles, and at Colts. They're going to have to flip 4 of those 5 in order to go from 7-10 to 11-6 to win the division. They're going to have to flip 4 of those 5. And the big question is, can they? Yes, they have the talent to do it, but I'm not confident that they will do it because they traded Micah Parsons. I still don't feel like they found their replacement to him. Even though they do have some much better edge rushers versus a season ago, I still don't feel like they have that megastar replacement to Parsons. The Browns at least got a blue-chip player in the Myles Garrett trade in Verse. I can't say that about the Cowboys, even though I do like Rashad Gary and Izaraku. I wasn't as high on the South Florida player Malachi Lord. I had a high rate on him, but I don't think he was a guy with Pro Bowl upside or even blue-chip talent. So That is my issue with the Cowboys, but they can fix that in next year's draft with the Packers' first-round pick. But I'm going to get to the next. I'm going to get to the Commanders next because I have the I have the Giants and Eagles in my top 2, so I'm going to save those 2 for last. Plus, Jaden Daniels, he wants the number 5 LSU. You can't steal number 5 from Jaden Daniels. He wants and all the QBs with number 5 are going to have to change their number. I've heard joke after joke about that all week. But McLaurin, Diggs, and McCaffrey are your top 3 receivers. You have Antonio Williams learning under those 3. Really, Tunsil, he got injured. He's going to miss most of the season. So Brandon Coleman, who was the blind side for Jaden during his rookie year, goes. Julian Good-Jones, the 3rd-string center on the Eagles, is now the starting center until Allegretti comes back. That is not good news because the Eagles had a ton of issues at center last year. The best center the Eagles had was the rookie they drafted from Boston College, and they didn't even play him. I mean, so and the fact that Julian Good-Jones was behind that rookie center, Drew Kendall, that tells me everything I need to know about Commander's center situation. And Brunskill, but with Good-Jones, he's actually beating out Brunskill, which is a little bit surprising, but it's early. We can't put too much stock into these position battles. Chigo Conquo's a big addition. They add Rashad White and draft Katron Allen to push cross-team merit. You got a 3 back-by-committee system now. And we saw Mariota Hartman and the Rutgers QB compete. And the Rutgers quarter, Hartman played the 3rd quarter. I think Hartman played the 2nd quarter. Mariota played the 1st, and Colleague Manis played the entire 2nd half. And then you look at the Commanders, they've got Kinlaw, Settle, Payne. This says they're moving to a 34. I'll believe it when I see it. Owa and Chason work better at a 34, though. Luvu and Styles can be Mike linebackers in that scheme. You got Trey Aim. You got Nick Cross. I'm not high on Jeremy Reeves at free safety, but they're going to have to upgrade free safety next to Nick Cross. I don't think, and even if they get in the playoffs with this lineup, if teams just pick apart their free safety, I think they'll have a good amount of success. Sonny Styles has struggled preseason. A little bit surprised he's beating O'Chanal, but he's only beating him out by a landslide. He has struggled with preseason based on the tape and based on Amik Robertson, Lions nickel corner signed with Washington, and they cut Terry and Arnold. That's why I think the Lions go 9-8, miss the playoffs. They're going to have problems at corner. Their 2 safeties are injured, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. So the secondary is going to be a mess early in the season for Detroit. But the good news for Detroit is they're weak. The easiest part of their schedules in the early part of the series occur. But it comes down to Jaden Daniels being healthy. This is a team that could they could realistically go 6-11, 7-10 again, and finish in the top 10. I think there's too much talent for them to be in the bottom 5, but if Jaden Daniels has multiple injuries again like last year, and he really he's got to, if he goes 9-8, do enough to get a 5th-year tender, he's got to take Washington back playoffs if he wants a contract extension this year, because the injuries with him already increased the volatility of a second contract not aging well. So, how bad does Jaden want that second contract?
Yeah,
that's what he's gonna.
He has to stop with the.
Yeah.
Well, Chris,
like
the Commanders last year, nothing went right.
Drafted was at like a 70. He went from like a 60 or a 50 to a 90 because he took Washington to the NFC Championship. And then with all the injuries last year, you could argue his approval rating with the organization went from a 50 to a 90. He's still in good standing with the team, but if he has another injury-riddled season,
it would be a. Well, I don't
What are you
think
saying?
that it really makes as much as I don't think it would really make as much of a difference with one season. Now, to your point, I don't think it affected his standing with the organization after one season of being injured. But if he has a second one, that's when the question.
Yeah, because if he has another injury-riddled season, then that approval rating drops from like a 70 to like a 45. But if he stays, approval probably goes back up, gets a slight boost and goes up from 70 to 75. And I think as long as it's above 70, he's going to get a fifth-year tender. If he can get the approval rating above 80, I think he'll be in a position to where he can request a second contract and the team will honor his request.
Yeah, if he can do that, if he can get him back to the playoffs, stay healthy, and put up a good showing, then yes, I agree. That's when he has more of the leverage than the
Because
team.
right now, Caleb and Drake May both have the leverage. If they wanted to say, I'm not coming back unless I get more than Dak Prescott, they could do that, and the teams would be forced to pay them. I don't think either guy's going to do that, though. And if both QBs were smart, they would take only around 50 to 55 million and save some of the team, other young core players on the team. Because
that's where you take what you're talking about is the Tom Brady approach.
Yes.
How much money did Tom Brady leave on the table over 20 years to make sure his team stayed where the Patriots were? So if either of these guys do that, then they're more than likely to get a 7-year deal with a lot more money guaranteed at a lesser rate, and the team will probably be more competitive for longer.
I agree. So looking at that, but yeah, I'm gonna look at the schedule now for the Commanders. It's not great, but I'm gonna get to the Commanders here. I have the Commanders in third at 9-8, missing the playoffs. But here's the thing: if the Niners go 9-8 and the Commanders are 9-8, and the Lions are not 9-8, their Commanders will get that last wild. So, we'll see. I think they go 9-8, miss the playoffs. I think that would get Jaden Daniels a fifth-year tender if he's healthy, but it wouldn't get him a second contract. He'd have to prove it and get Washington back to the playoffs in year 4 to really earn that second contract. But because he got Washington the NFC Championship as a rookie, as long as he's healthy, he's going to get and he gets 9 wins, he's going to get a fifth-year tender at the very worst. Because if he didn't if the rookie season he had, he'd be in a position, it'd be an uphill battle. He'd be in a position where it's an uphill battle like Bryce Young. He's not in that position because of his rookie season. His rookie season prevented him from being in that position, which is good. I'm like 9th. But hey, there's a few issues every time I scroll down. Fudge. All right, let's try
Or
again.
it could be that ad that's taking up bandwidth in the background.
I'm trying to get rid of the ad. Like I've clicked X on it, it doesn't X out. I've tried clicking on the ad to get rid of it. It does not go away.
Did you push skip ad?
There's not a skip ad button. It's just a.
There it goes.
That I clicked the X. That's not. Yeah. So you've got the never-ending story and you've got the never-ending pop-up ad. You've got the never-ending story. You've got the never-ending pop-up.
Pretty much.
Pop-up ad. This is the never-ending pop-up. So
pretty much, you skip it, you click X, whatever, and it goes away. Then it comes right back. There it is.
There we go.
An old friend that you never
number
wanted.
9. There we go. I've got Washington at 9-8. Washington, their schedule to begin the year is just brutal. They get at Philly, at Dallas versus Seattle for the month of September. They get the Colts in the United Kingdom in week 4. That's the first international game, national series of weeks in Austria. They get the Giants at home. They play the Niners on Monday night. So I just think their schedule is an uphill battle. I think they can go 9-8, but the early part of their schedule is an easy early schedule and an awful end game. Washington has a really bad early schedule, and let's share the tab here. See, look at the schedule, Joey. Washington's schedule, early schedule is brutal. At Philly, at Dallas, versus Seattle in the home opener. They play in London the following week against the Colts after the Seahawks game. Their early schedule is brutal, and then they get the Niners on Monday night after they play the Giants. So, I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle for Jaden Daniels in the early part of the season. He's just got to survive these first 6 weeks and then just rally the team from there in the second half like our GP season. This early schedule is going to be brutal. It is a brutal stretch to start the year. I don't think it will be that way for the entirety of the season, but for at least the early portion, it is that way. And then after the bye week, you host the Rams and Eagles. They might lose one of those games at home. They genuinely might. I have them losing to Seattle at home, but if they lose to someone else besides Seattle at home, it will most likely be to either one of those two teams if they lay an egg at home. They beat the Bengals on Monday night during Jaden's rookie year with Burrow. They get the Giants in New York. They play the Cardinals in Arizona. That could be that could be a trap game. They get the Titans on the road as well. I do have Cam Ward pulling the upset in that one. They host the Texans and Commanders. They go to Minnesota. I think Kyler Murray can upset Washington. And then they play the Jaguars in Jacksonville and host Dallas. So even after taking all the wins and losses into account, Washington finishes 9-8. And I went through that schedule week by week. Your impression was they were probably 7-10 or 8-9 with that schedule. They're not. I have them at 9-10, 9-8, but they got off to a 2-4 start, 0-3 start, and finished 9-8. They cannot start 0-3 if they want to make the playoffs. So they're going to have to steal one of those first 3 games if they're going to make the playoffs and have a shot at getting one of these wild cards. Or sweep the Giants. Or sweep the Eagles. You're going to have to sweep one of those 2 NFC East teams to get in the playoffs, potentially win the division. All right. I'm going to get to the Giants and the Eagles. I don't know how much time you have, Joey, but it's almost 12:30, and I appreciate you calling in. You can stick around, but I feel like this is...
I'm going to stick around for at least another... I'm going to stick around until 12:30, then I'm going to have to bail because I do have to make a phone call.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm trying to get through this as quickly as possible here. I'm making Stream is sharing this. Okay, Restream... Has Restream not been screen sharing? I think Restream...
It's been screen sharing.
Yeah, it says it's not screen sharing, but yeah. Now it's screen sharing, but yeah. All right. Okay, Malik Neighbors is
I'm not seeing the screen share now, but now there it is. Now it's back.
Yeah. So it disappeared for a second, and now it's back. That's probably what happened. Malik Neighbors. He's the wide receiver 1 when he comes back. Slayton's the wide receiver. Charts aren't necessarily accurate. Schuster and Austin all competing for that slot job. Barry roster cut. They have a lot of depth. Here's at left guard and center, and the Giants, if they make the playoffs, one position they could address is the offense. 3 left guards with a first-round grade. So the Giants could very easily upgrade the interior of the offensive line. Isaiah Likely, Theo Johnson, Jackson Dart. Go with a Jackson Dart. Came a really good award thumbnail. I couldn't find that. I couldn't find the photo I wanted for that, so we ended up going with the college QBs. And the thumbnails usually dictate how the show is going to open, but I think with the AFC North, we might be able to get a thumbnail with both Brissett and with both thumbnail with both and I know putting 4 receivers in a thumbnail is kind of crazy. Could put 5 in if you threw in Jeremy Bernard. I don't think the Bengals drafted a rookie receiver, and they've got plenty of weapons for Burrow, so I don't really feel like that's necessary. Arvell Reese, he's going to play Mike linebacker. See the right outside and left outside linebacker, Carter Burns, those are the edges. So Arvell Reese and Edmonds are going to play inside. Reeder, Shelby Harris, Darius Alexander are the defensive linemen. Adebo, and number 2 corner on the Giants. Drew Phillips is your nickel. But Colton Hood and Deontay Banks, last year's number 1 corner for the last 2 years, are pushing him. So they do have enough.
Chris, when I was, before I came on, I was listening to Talk Sports Radio, and there was an NFL insider on there that's been to all 32 teams, and he said Arvell Reese is having some difficulty and probably won't be the big pass rusher this year, but he's showing good signs everywhere else and could be a dark horse to be defensive rookie of the year if he continues to improve.
Yeah. And the Giants, I have the Giants at 10-7. I'll pull up the schedule. I even have the Giants beating the Bears in the wild card. And why? Coaching. Yeah, I value that just as much as coaching, and more to a point. But why? The Bears impressed Taylor as their offensive coordinator. The Giants' senior advisor is Greg Roman, Harbaugh's old buddy from Baltimore. And Press Taylor's the new offensive coordinator for the Bears. He was as offensive coordinators. QB coach, he was okay, but as offensive coordinator, as the play caller, he was god-awful.
And something I heard about Jackson Dart in the same conversation was he's having trouble with Harbaugh's offense.
Reads, according to offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, but the senior advisor is Greg Roman. Greg Roman is on the
guy
Giants.
that failed with Lamar Jackson. I mean, it had to be really bad to fail with Lamar Jackson, but he managed it.
The reason he went to the Giants is because he didn't want an offensive coordinator role. He wanted like an advisor role where he could mentor your offensive coordinator. I don't know how to describe the student-mentor relationship between Greg Roman and Matt Nagy. I feel like it's Yoda teaching a Hamtaro hamster from the little tiny hamster to fight with a lightsaber. It's just... And I think comparing, as much as I like Greg Roman, comparing him to Yoda is disrespectful to Yoda. I just realized that now, but yeah, it's like comparing Matt Nagy to a Hamtaro. I think that's appropriate, but I digress. The Giants, they got to play. I think they beat the Cowboys. This is a game Joey has them losing. They get the Titans and the Cardinals. The Commanders versus the Saints at Texans. I think they lose the Eagles, but they beat the Commanders. They beat the Colts. Jaguars. They get this 4-game winning streak. They lose to Seattle. They get the Browns late in the year. They win that game. Then they lose to the Lions on Monday night, and then they lose to Dallas. But after this losing streak, they get Philly at home, and they win that game. forcing a tie between the two NFC East teams, but the Eagles own the tiebreaker. So even if the Giants and Eagles both go 10-7, because the Eagles have the better conference record, they win the division. But in this scenario, I don't think the Giants would fare well against Seattle or Tampa Bay in a playoff game. I do think Philly is beatable. I do think Philly is beatable. I also think the Bears are beatable. If what Greg Roman teaches him from now until the end of the regular season and apply the Giant chance, because unlike last year, a young Declan Doyle who's now in Baltimore. Now they have Press Taylor, who is a downgrade. So, again, if Matt Nagy can take what Greg Roman teaches him after winning a Super Bowl as the Chiefs offensive coordinator in 58, even with the offense regressing as bad as it after Eric B, take that and apply it, they have something. But, yeah, I do have the Eagles winning the division. Already been hit by injuries. On paper, I feel Super Bowl for Jalen Hurts. I feel like the window may have closed last year, and it's going to come down to getting a good offensive coordinator. Team. She's 12-32, and is not.
Yeah, I actually just sent you a message that said I need to get it. So,
Is that on Facebook? I need to go. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So do that. Do what you need to do. Devin Witherspoon got paid $33 million a year. Just wanted to break that news to you before you left. All right.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter along with everybody roasting Kevin Stefanski like he was a pig on a fire. So, you know, Atlanta Falcons fans are not happy after last night. Let me tell you.
I mean, the Falcons lost Jalen Walker for his first 8 games. He has to be back until the okay.
Yeah,
The Falcons season would.
And in the press conference, what did he say? Well, we just have to play better. We have to get back and look at the tape. And then Spencer German, one of the Browns analysts, replied to that Falcons journalist saying, copy that and clip it 100 times, and then you can just copy and paste it. You don't have to worry about printing it again because it's going to be said a lot. It was funny. It was a funny exchange.
What Joey I only hear things early in the. They decided to come on Saturday during the podcast, making their Draft Utopia debut.
I guess. Yeah, a good one.
But yeah, Joey's got a phone call to make. I will wrap up with the landscape, and I'll go through the number 2 player each of our Draft Simulator Utopia 6 pack at the end. Okay. I kind of knew that would be at the end. But yeah, I'll go through the number 2 player each of our draft simulators at the very Utopia 6 World Cup show. But yeah, Lemon's injury not Goddard, but he's also. He's dealing with an injury. So is Markel Bell. What the Eagles did in the first 2 days of the draft. Failed to build on that in the later rounds. I forgot to screen share this Eagles depth, and then we'll look at the defense for the Eagles. I like Drew Kendall as a backup to Juergens. Why they sucked as bad as they did last year. Greenard as an edge rusher next to Nolan Smith Why is Alex Hunt starting? Nolan Smith and Greener need to be the starters at edge rusher. Hunt needs to come off the bench. If the Eagles are going to keep either Smith or Greener on the bench, they're not going to get the most out of this defense. You know, Rick Wool, Cooper DeJean, point top 3 corners. Mukaba and Epps are the safeties. But yeah, looking at the Eagles, I'm a little bit more bearish on the Eagles. I think they'll win the division, but I don't think they're built for a playoff run because I look on paper, they're a little bit weaker than last year. They're better off long term by the players they got in the draft will make them more competitive long term, but short term, they get the Titans and Bears on the. They get the. If that game was in Jacksonville, I'd probably pick the Eagles, but I'm gonna pick the Jags. I think the Eagles are gonna win the division at the end, but it's gonna be an uphill battle early in the season. It really is. Like unless Dallas starts 5-0, I don't think there's a team that can pull away enough to separate themselves from the Eagles. I've got the Eagles beating the Panthers and Cowboys. I've got the Commanders beating the Eagles. The Giants also lose the Eagles. Then the Eagles host the Steelers following a bye week. And I've got the Eagles winning that one too. I don't like the Eagles as a fan, but I've come to accept the reality they'll probably beat Dallas on Thanksgiving. They'll probably beat the Cardinals. They'll beat the Colts. I have the Eagles going on a 5-game winning streak before losing to Seattle. They beat the Texans, and then they end the season on a 3-game losing streak, getting cold at the worst wild card game. I have losing streak. So that's kind of how in football. I go not just the move to Utah, but you know. All right, so I'm gonna get back to All right, so I've got to redo everything. All right, we're gonna break down the AFC South now, and in last place I have the Colts. I have the Colts in last place. But we're gonna break down the Colts. We're gonna break down these teams. Then the Jags, then the Titans, and the second. That's why we're leading the Colts camp last year. Got this really cool football from Tanner Bortolini. I mean, so had a blast at Colts camp last year. But yeah, done any I'm more of a coder than a traveler. But if I get a plane or a call, or a wire, I would travel more. I don't want to drive in a car. Like I like walking, but yeah, I'm looking at these playoff games here. I'm trying my. And then, yeah, this is kind of how I see it playing out. And then, and that's going to be Allen's path to a Super Bowl. He's going to be Dre in the AFC title game, and then Seattle in the Super Bowl, defending champs. And that path will be the path that gets him to Canton. That if Allen does that, he beats those 3 teams in a playoff run with the Bills as a 1 seed. That'll be the playoff run that gets him into Canton. All right, but yeah, let's get back to I want to do yeah. All right, now look at it. All great team. Injured. Downs is the only receiver I like on this roster. I think getting rid of Pittman was a bad decision. I do think Jalen Travis can take over for the Braden Smith at right. Line's pretty strong. Taylor's back. Giddens is back. They've got Seth McGowan in the 7th round. I do think the offense is good, but I think Daniel Jones is going to regress hard this season versus last. That's why I'm down on the Colts. I had the Colts at 8 and 9 in the preseason. I didn't think Jones would play like an MVP in the first half, but I'm expecting him to regress. They have C.J. Allen and Akeem Davis. Linebacker, the de facto number 3. Latu and Key are the starters. Stewart and Buckner, defensive tackles. You've got Sauce Gardner and Ward. The big surprise is A.J. Halsey, the LSU safety. He's projected to start next to Bynum as a rookie, and then you got Justin Wally at nickel. I did have a 3rd round grade on Halsey. He was my 5th best safety, I believe, but yeah. He's projected to be a day 1 starter, which is very encouraging for the Colts. But looking at the Colts schedule, I'm not encouraged by the lineup. I just look at I think the Colts are going to be a bottom 3 team in the conference. Unlike last year when I had the Colts at 8 and 9, with all these guys in contract years, all these aging veterans like Quentin Nelson, Forrest Buckner in contract years, Taylor still in his prime. He just got paid another 3-year extension. He got his 3rd contract. I kind of had a feeling, I hope William makes it, but I kind of had a feeling this morning he wasn't going to make it. All right, so I've got the Colts. I thought I had the Colts at 5 and 12. I have them at 4 and 13, but they host the Ravens. Looking at the schedule here, they host the Ravens. They travel to Kansas City. They host the Texans. They play the Commanders in London. They play the Steelers. A brutal first 5 games of the season. They get the Titans at home in Week 6. I think they will win in Week 6, but this opening, and to make matters worse, the Colts do not have a first-round pick next year. So even if Daniel Jones completely sucks, he probably will get one more year in 2027. Even if he completely sucks this year, he'll probably get one more year simply due to how much the Colts paid him. They could get a QB in round 2, but their options are going to be extremely limited by that point. At Minnesota, at Jacksonville, I've got Indy going 1-7 in their first 8 games. Then they get a 2-game winning streak against Dallas and Miami, but they only win 1 game the rest of the season after that. I don't think I need to scroll through the Colts roster and waste any more damn time with the Colts, so I'm not gonna. And I got to use the bathroom, so I'll try to scroll down, but I really have to use the restroom. I've needed to go since like 10 a.m. My iPad's at 23%. I'm going to charge my iPad, and then I'm going to come back and finish the show after I use the restroom. But I'm going to plug in the iPad charger because the iPad's at 23%. I didn't think I'd still be on air. And we got the Draft Utopia 6-pack too on Restream, which we'll have at the very end. So I probably should have started this show a little bit earlier. That is on me, guys. William, I wish William was here, but I know he's going through some stuff, so got to stay patient. But yeah, I'm going to load up the Jaguars. I'm going to use the bathroom. I'll load the Jaguars. We can speculate on the Jags next, and then I'm going to right. Let me send you guys some stuff. I'll send you guys some videos. All right. I'm back from the restroom. I'll wait till my hands dry. The iPad's at 24% now. It was at 23%. I'll wait till my hands dry before I grab the iPad, but I'll bring it back. But let's preview the Jaguars, ladies and gentlemen. So, Brian Thomas, Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington. I do like Anton Harrison's at left tackle. They went from Walker Little to Cole Van Lanen to Harrison. Harrison's been the right tackle his first 2 years. He played left tackle at Oklahoma. I think he played left tackle at Oklahoma. No, Guyton played left tackle at Oklahoma. So Harrison was always the right tackle at Oklahoma, but he may have been a left tackler. But strange. I think the defense, even with the loss of I'm not sold on Gardeck. Ventrell Miller could be a decent replacement to Devin Lloyd. There are some things I like, but there's a lot that I just there's quite a few players on Jacksonville that I have zero confidence in. I have them beating the Browns in week 1, but that's going to be their Super Bowl. And then I think they lose to Denver, they lose to New England, they lose to Cincy. They're 1-3. They win 2 home games, entering the bye to give the fans a little bit of false optimism. They keep the winning streak up. They go 4-3, and then after that they implode again. They have another 3-game skid, and they drop to 4-6, and actually 4-7. So they start 3-3, and then they go to 4-3, and then they have this 3-game skid, which drops them to 4-6, 5-6, 5-7, 6-7, 6-7 joke. 2 consecutive losses, 6-9, and and then they beat the Commanders and they lose the Colts, and they end the year at I forgot to share the schedule tab. I'm sorry, the frickin' lawnmower has me out of it. Okay, guys, I really shouldn't be blaming the lawnmower, but it's harder to focus, and the mouse is being a dick as well. So between the mouse being a dick to me and the schedule. All right, so let's look at the Titans. We're on to Tennessee. All right, so 2 more teams left, and then we're going to fire up the Draft Utopia Simulator, play the Draft Utopia 6-pack, and I'll reveal my number 2 players in all of the following draft classes. I am tired. I'm trying to stay awake. I did not get any sleep last night. Spent a lot of time preparing, scheduling the show, updating simulators, guys. 25%. So I passed at 25%. I think we okay. All right. Let's talk Titans. We got 2 teams left to preview today, and then it's off to the simulators. Okay, Ridley, Tate, Wandale Robinson. Tate had 0 receptions in the preseason opener. I don't think it's a lot to put stock into. There are some people that are going to overreact. Skarotsky, Schlottman, Latham, Volston's the new right guard, replacing former Bengals left guards, replacing they've got Gunnar Helm, Cam Ward. Jermaine Johnson's going to play at defensive end. But, yeah, Jacob Martin is beating out Keldrick Falk for the defensive end job next to Jermaine Johnson. That is in Cody Barton. Anthony's behind Barton on the depth chart, even though Barton was the highest player on my board that the Titans drafted. So, looking at the Titans and their situation is less encouraging than I anticipated. But I do believe this is going to be the Titans' peak season. They're going to overachieve with Brian Daboll, and then once Daboll gets a head coaching gig, they're going to revert to being crap. That is what I believe is going to happen with the Titans. They are going to overachieve. With Saleh and Daboll, I feel like they are going to overachieve. So, yes. All right, let's just load the Titans schedule here. I've got the reason I called the AFC South the worst division in football is very simple. I've got two teams, 8 and 9, tied for first place, the Titans and the Texans. And they're going to play each other in Week 18 for the division. So, yeah. We're going to load the Titans up first, and then we'll preview the Texans. But looking at the Titans, I think Salah's going to win both of those games, have them 2-0. Then they're going to lose on the road to the Giants and the Ravens. They're going to be humbled up against those teams. But yeah, I have the Titans running the table 8-0 in their final season at Nissan Stadium and 0-9 on the road. I've got them 3-4 versus winning teams and 5-5 versus losing teams and 3-3 versus playoff teams. So yeah, I have them beating the Texans in Week 5 to get to 3-2. And then they lose the Colts, they're 3-3. They beat the Browns, they're 4-3. They lose the Bengals, they're 4-4. And it's just this roller coaster of bullshit that the Titans are luckily to encounter. I try not to cuss when Ron's on the show. When Ron leaves the show, my filter gets disarmed. Great job, Ron. Thank you for retweeting the show. But yeah. But I have got the Titans. They play the Niners. Is that the Niners after the bye week? Who the hell is that? Can this fucking mouse work, damn it? Can this fucking mouse please fucking work? Ugh. Can we please get through the damn schedule? Okay. I am starting to get angry. I don't like having to scroll all the way down with the fucking mouse not working. It's starting to piss me off. This is starting to piss me off. I'm going to see if I've got a wireless mouse, if I've got anything I can use. I think I do have a wireless mouse, but I don't think it's going to work on the computer. I don't think it's going to work. Okay? I just don't think it's going to work. So the Titans, they get a bye week after the 4-4 start. They beat the Jags in Week 10. They're 5-4. They lose to Dallas. Then they lose to Jacksonville, so they drop to 5-6. Ugh, this is pissing me off. Like, we're almost done here, but this is pissing me off. I don't like... Okay, there we go. now you're after beating the Commanders, 6-7, 7-7, 7-8. Mendoza hands you a loss. You beat the Steelers to get to 8-8, but then you got to play the Texans in a game that decides the division, and ultimately the Texans barely win this division in what I think will end up being the weakest division this season. So yeah, all right. We're on the final freaking team here. We're on the final damn team for these previews, and then we'll get to the draft simulators, and then we'll the Draft Utopia 6-pack. The iPad's at 19%. We'll be able to get to the 6-pack, but we have got to freaking move a little bit faster here. It's 1:01. The preseason's about to start. Are we serious, NFL Network? So, I thought Bears and Browns was live. And we're getting a rerun of the last night's Dolphin-Commander game. I don't know what the hell is going on with NFL Network, but for some reason, NFL Network decided to black out the Browns-Bears game. Whatever. I'm blaming Brad Allen. He's the rep Commanders game from light. I'm blaming Brad Allen because I feel like it. Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Tank Dell, they're going to have weapons. Xavier Hutchinson and Lewis Bond are the backups. Wyatt Teller is the left guard. Braden Smith's the right guard. Rutledge, rookie draft pick. Montgomery's your bell cow, but you got Woody Marks as a change of pace back versus having to be the number one guy. Hunter and Anderson are back. Rankins and Togai are back. You added Caden McDonald for depth at defensive tackle. You've added Clowney for depth at defensive end. It's Henry Toto and Aziz Al-Shahir. Reed Blankenship complements Bullock. Lassiter and Petir are back. But yeah. Let's get to the Texans' schedule, and then we'll get to the Draft Utopia 6-pack and wrap this show up. Okay. Houston Texans. I do have them at 8-9. I have them going 7-1 at home. They lose the home. They are with a win versus Cincinnati. Beat the Colts and Cowboys. They are 3-1 after the first 4 weeks. Then they lose the Titans, who improved to 3-2. And have the tiebreaker, and then they drop to 3-3. They're 4-3 after they beat the Giants. They dropped to 4-4 following a loss to the Chargers. They lose to the Browns. They're 4-5. Titans are 5-5, I think, at this point, or 5-4. And then at this point, they improved to 6-5 with a 2-game winning streak. Lose to the Steelers, drop to 6-6. They lose the Commanders 6-7. Yeah, I have a ton of 6-7. I have the Jags, Titans, and Texans the Draft Utopia 6-pack with you guys on TalkShoe. Is that a fair compromise? You'll get the 6-pack on TalkShoe, but the NFL skills and the NFL, you will have to go to that. And yeah, I will share this Draft Utopia 6-pack. I've got each of these simulators up to 30, except for the last 2 simulators. I have the WNBA simulator at 28. I've got the images for the players ready to go, but I don't have it necessarily with me. But yeah, I forgot to share the. But yeah, Draft Utopia 6-pack time. All right, so outside of Jeremiah Smith, my number 2 player is Carter Smith, Indiana left tackle. He played right tackle as a redshirt freshman against Ohio State, and he's been a left tackle the rest of the way. He was Mendoza's blindside last year, 6'5", 313. Carter Smith, I've got a 96 for potential on Carter Smith. He's my OT1 for this draft at the moment. Scouted Leonard Moore, my number 3 player, last week on the show. Or 2 weeks ago, we scouted Leonard Moore in the very first edition of the Draft Utopia 6-pack. So we'll get to these. And we talked about these Missouri guys today. We didn't scout them in depth, but Hardy, he pass blocks well. He ball carrier vision's great. Pass catches well. Runs with a lot of great speed. Caden Green, 2 years of left tackle and left guard experience. So yeah, I will mention those guys in the 6-pack next time. All right, now let's get to the number 2 player on the NHL Draft Simulator. This is a little bit trickier, but at this point, it is Alexis Joseph, 6'4", 200 pounds. This is a guy who played first-line center, went number 1 in the QMJHL draft. James Scantlebury gave him a run for his money, though. Him and Scantlebury were the top 2 guys in Quebec heading into the QMJHL draft, and Scantlebury turned down the QMJHL for the USHL, but he's going back to the QMJHL this season for the Quebec Rempart. But yeah, Joseph can win faceoffs, he can score goals, generate assists, play defense well, a jack-of-all-trades center with a 200-foot game. And right now I've got Calgary at 2 in the Draft Simulator behind Vancouver. Landon DuPont of Michigan, Everett Silvertips defender going to Michigan, and Alexis Joseph are my top 2 guys. Offensive awareness, defensive awareness, hockey IQ, everything's there with Alexis Joseph. The production's just got to improve next season. All right, next up, the NBA Simulator. I have Tyron Stokes. Tyron Stokes can shoot threes, mid-range shots, short-range shots, pass the ball, defend well. Caleb Holt does all those things too at the shooting guard spot. Not as elite of a defender as Stokes, but he can get steals. Stokes is more of a blocker, rebounder defender, one-on-one transition defender, whereas Caleb Holt is more of a steal, swat the ball in your face type of defender as far as defending goes. But yeah, Caleb Holt is my number 2 player on the NBA Simulator. 6'5", 200 pounds. He's our number 2 guy at the moment. MLB Simulator. Our number 2 guy in baseball is Florida shortstop Brendan Lawson. Lawson projects better as a third baseman in the MLB. So Lawson would be the Athletics pick at 2. And I've got the Angels taking Seward. But yeah, there is a really good pitcher draft. It's a great draft for third basemen and catchers. It's a great draft for shortstops at the high school level. It's not a great draft for college shortstops, though. MLS Simulator, I talked about Adacora the last few weeks. The other freshman I like is Miles Carson. He's projected to start at left back. The last true freshman to start at left back was Tate Johnson. He was a 2025 first-round pick. Played the 2024 season as the Tar Heels left back. And we have 3 Tar Heels in our top 30. North Carolina actually leads the top 30 with 3 players in the top 30 of this draft simulator. So Miles Carson, he's a left back, true freshman, a little bit bigger than Riley Maloney, but 2 left backs in the top 3, 12 midfielders in the first round. It's a great draft for midfielders and left backs. And finally, the WNBA simulator. Juju Watkins, we have the Connecticut Sun are going to relocate to be the Houston Comets. There's no current Houston Comets logo, so we have the old one. But yeah, and then Hannah Hidalgo. Hannah Hidalgo is probably going to go number 2 to the Mystics. It's why the Mystics wouldn't give up the Chicago pick to get Kelsey Plum. I think Hannah, she does everything as well. She can shoot from short range, medium range, long range. She defends well. She took the starting point guard job from Olivia Miles, the WNBA Rookie of the Year as a true freshman at Notre Dame. So I think Juju and Hidalgo with the market for point guards, the fact that this is a very heavy draft for wings at both small forward and shooting guard. And that's the thing with the 2027 drafts. Quarterback, midfielder, center in hockey, pitcher in baseball, and wing. It's a very heavy draft for wings. I did initially have Booker at 2, but I think with this being a thinner point guard draft and the Mystics' biggest need being at point guard, I think Hidalgo is going to get pushed up to 2 because Georgia Moore hasn't stepped up in her second WNBA season like everyone thought she would, and I just think as I can keep her as a backup, but Georgia Moore should be a great backup during a rookie deal, but I think Hidalgo is probably the gal on the Mystics. So yeah, that is the Draft Utopia 6-pack, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, hopefully William will back. Next week we're going to have AFC North, AFC West, Big Ten. We are going to preview the Big Ten, but that's going to be after the AFC North and AFC West. And yeah, we're also going to have, in addition to that, we're also going to have the Draft Utopia 6-pack. And I'm hoping Joey and William provide some input here. I don't want to have to do the scouting and reveal every player on my board one by one. I think that's kind of boring. It's mundane. It's bland. It doesn't offer a different perspective. I know Joey wanted to do the Draft Utopia 6-pack, but couldn't due to time constraints. So, yeah. All right. So that will do it. We've scouted 6 of the 28 players on the NFL, 6 of the 30 players in the NFL simulator, and the top 2 on every other draft simulator. We'll be back next week. I'm hoping someone else will do some scouting besides me. I do not want to have to carry the scouting each week, but I will for now, I guess. But, you know, this was when I planned to bring this segment, the Draft Utopia 6-pack. This was not something I was anticipating, having to reveal my top 2 this early in the draft process. And again, things can change. They hardly ever stay the same. But I'm going to sign off on TalkShoe. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye. Enjoy your Saturdays. Preseason, NFL preseasons are on. Now, I'm also going to sign off on Restream. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Like, what the hell is this thing in the background? Works if there's 2 people. I don't like the black screen in the background, and I don't know how to get rid of it, or I don't know how to. Yeah, here we go. Let's try maximizing me. If I'm the only one here, I want my face to pick. Okay. Is deleting the countdown how we get the Okay. Shared tabs can be scrolled and zoomed. Okay. That's why. I forgot to stop screen share. Minutes. I see the private chat. I see a lot of stuff. But why is this half screen? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my camera off. Why is this okay. All right, source not shown in Spotlight. Try another layout. Okay, the camera's just being a gigantic ass. It's not being a minor ass. It's being a gigantic ass to me. Camera not off. I want to sign off, and the fucking camera is not working. Fucking bullshit. I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the show ending. I'm not happy. Yeah. All right, I'm going to end this on black. I've talked about everything. I've talked about every topic I can think of. I'm just angry that the screen went black to end the show. But if I start a new show next week, I don't think I'll have this issue. But yeah, I'm gonna end the show, and I want to watch the preseason and have some fun. All right, I've earned that, and yeah.